O eternal and almighty God, from whom all power and wisdom come, we are assembled here before thee to frame such laws as may tend to the welfare and prosperity of our province. Grant, O merciful God, we pray thee, that we may desire only that which is in accordance with thy will, that we may seek it with wisdom and know it with certainty and accomplish it perfectly. For the glory and honor of thy name and for the welfare of all our people. Amen. We acknowledge we are gathered on Treaty 1 territory, that Manitoba is located on the treaty territories and ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Anishinaabe, Dakota Oete, Dene Sulene, and Neothog nations. We acknowledge Manitoba is located on the homeland of the Red River Métis. We acknowledge northern Manitoba includes lands that were and are the ancestral lands of the Inuit. We respect the spirit and intent of treaties and treaty making and remain committed to working in partnership with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people in the spirit of truth, reconciliation, and collaboration. Please be seated. Routine proceedings. Introduction of bills. The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I move, seconded by the Minister for Municipal and Northern Relations, that Bill number 39, the Long-Bladed Weapon Control Act, be now read for a first time.
It's been moved by the Honourable Minister of Justice, seconded by the Honourable Minister of Municipal and Northern Relations, that Bill number 39, the Long-Bladed Weapon Control Act, be now read first time. The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Honourable Speaker, I'm pleased to introduce Bill 39, the Long-Bladed Weapon Control Act. This legislation will restrict the retail sale of machetes, knives, swords, and other edged weapons to keep them out of the hands of criminals. Bill 39 would require retailers to only sell these weapons to individuals over the age of 18, restrict access to these weapons from the public to reduce theft, and require all purchasers to provide photo identification at the point of sale. Retail stores would be required to retain records for all prescribed machete, knife, sword, and other edged weapon purchases for a minimum of 2 years. Honourable Speaker, I'm pleased to present this bill to the House for its consideration. Thank you.
Good job.
Is it the pleasure of the House to adopt the motion? Agreed and so ordered. Committee reports. Tabling of reports. The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
Honourable Speaker, I'm pleased to table the annual report for the Department of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care for the fiscal year 2023-24. Thank you.
The Honourable Minister of Sport, Culture, Heritage and Tourism.
Honourable Speaker, I rise today to table the following 7 reports. The 2023-24 Travel Manitoba Annual Report, the Manitoba Liquor and Lotteries Annual Report for 2023-24, the 23-24 Annual Report for Manitoba Film and Music, the Manitoba Centennial Centre Corporation Annual Report for 2023-2024, le rapport annuel des Conseils des Arts du Manitoba Arts Council for 2023-2024, le rapport annuel du Centre culturel franco-manitobain pour l'année 2023-24 et le rapport annuel pour le sport, de la culture, du patrimoine et du tourisme du Manitoba pour 2023 et 2024.
Ministerial statements. Member statements. The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
Miigwech, Honourable Speaker. Today I would like to recognize Community Helpers Unite, a trailblazing Indigenous non-profit organization working to cook and distribute food for Winnipeg's North End and beyond. Community Helpers Unite approach to food accessibility is guided by one important principle: food is medicine. They are an integral part of the community network. cooking and distributing an impressive 30,000 meals across Winnipeg in a single month, delivering every meal with kindness, dignity, and respect. Community Helpers Unite works towards making food insecurity and waste a thing of the past, because nobody deserves to go hungry. Community Helpers Unite is partnering with several different organizations, cooking and distributing meals to Nadinawaymak Warming Shelter, Kikanan Center for Elders, and Weejawidawin Shelter for Women. They're also involved with 19 different community walking groups who distribute food to our relatives in need. Community Helpers Unite works closely with action therapists to help keep families together, providing emergency food hampers to youth in care. They uplift youth and marginalized folks through education and mentorship, helping them to find barrier-free employment. I ask members of the House to join me in celebrating Brandy and Community Helpers Unite for their work. I am humbled by the incredible achievements they've made in our city. Your ambition and commitment make the world a kinder place. It is an honor to have you in the gallery, and I look forward to seeing the love and dedication you continue to bring to our community. I'd like to ask that their names be included in Hansard.
The honourable member for Steinbach.
Honourable Speaker, while travelling 20,000 kilometres, even in today's modern world, is daunting, imagine doing so by a series of trains, ships, and steamboat. But that's exactly what Mennonites fleeing Imperial Russia did 150 years ago in search of a new life that would preserve their religious freedom and commitment to pacifism. This story is depicted in the recently released film, Where the Cottonwoods Grow. My wife and I had the opportunity to view a screening of the film last Saturday at the historic Cron Barn in Newburgthal, Manitoba. Leaving their possessions, their villages, and in many cases their families, the Mennonite migrants of 1874 faced an uncertain journey, and many, including young children, never made it to Manitoba, having died along the path. When they arrived in Manitoba, having traveled up the Red River by steamboat, the Mennonite families faced oppressive heat and unfamiliar soil as they worked to create farmland and shelter. But the winter posed the greatest threat, and as the film describes, they spent that first winter in small sod-lined quarters, often with multiple families and with farm animals when the weather was bitterly cold. They also relied on the help of local Métis and First Nations peoples, both for preparing for winter and for treatment of unfamiliar illness. Today, what was once known as the East and West Reserve, where the Mennonites settled, is populated with vibrant and diverse communities and cities. Yet the foundation of those communities is not forgotten. Thank you to all those who were involved in producing Where the Cottonwoods Grow, especially filmmaker David Hildebrand and film collaborator Eleanor Chernobyl. You've helped to preserve an important part of Manitoba's history.
The honourable member for Tyndall Park.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I rise this afternoon to recognize Manitoba's foster parents. The month of October is recognized as Foster Parent Appreciation Month, and so it's a good time to reflect on all the passionate folks who open up their hearts and homes to provide love and care to thousands of children. Over the last couple of years, I've had the opportunity to work with hundreds of foster parents. I truly am inspired by the way foster parents contribute to the well-being of a child's life, whether short-term or long-term, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Honourable Speaker, it is important to recognize that there is still so much work that needs to be done to ensure biological families are never unnecessarily separated. Many children in care often face challenges, and we have a role to play in working towards providing safe and caring environments. Foster parents have and continue to step up in this regard. For example, here in Manitoba, foster parents strive to provide safety, better education on reconciliation, important cultural considerations, and a caring home, which are essential to the process of raising a child. Honorable Speaker, oftentimes the connection built between a child and foster family can last a lifetime. Foster parents can make such significant impacts on the lives of children, and this is why on April of 2023, I brought forward a resolution. This resolution called on the provincial government to recognize the valuable role that foster parents play in Manitoba communities. I'm so grateful that this House unanimously passed this resolution, and it is why we can stand here today thanking foster parents for the work that they do in recognition of Foster Parent Appreciation Month. Thank you.
I believe the Honourable Member for Lakeside is next in the rotation. The Honourable Member for Lakeside.
Honourable Speaker, I rise in the House today to recognize 85-year-old Lori Langrel, one of Manitoba's 2024 Hockey Hall of Fame inductees this past Saturday. After winning a title with his hometown Warren Bantams, Lori Langrel wanted to make the trek into Winnipeg every chance he could to play the best hockey he could find. The tall and athletic Langrel started out as a defenseman, making the jump to junior in 1956 with the Winnipeg Barons of the MJHL. He'd become a member of the Winnipeg Braves and League All-Star as a forward the following year. In 1958-59, Langrel was again a League All-Star and the Braves' leading scorer with 42 goals, including a 6-goal game and his 63 points. Playing on the L line with Bobby Leader and Al LeBlanc, the Braves captured the MJHL title. Hitting the road, the Braves would knock off the Fort William Canadians and the Edmonton Oil Kings to win the West. In the 1959 Memorial Cup final, the Braves would meet the Eastern champion Peterborough Petes. After losing Game 1, Langrel's 3 straight 2-goal games helped propel the Winnipeg Braves to the series win in the National Junior Crown. During his pro career in 59 and 60 and 65 and 66, he played a season in the AHL, then headed to the IHL with St. Paul, Minneapolis, Port Huron, and Des Moines. Langrel also had short stints in the WHL, the Winnipeg Warriors, and the Seattle Totems. Following his pro career, he played for his hometown Warren Mercury's in Intermediate C, then the Selkirk Fishermen in Manitoba Senior League, and then was the playing coach for Morden in the Southeastern League. Langrel coached the St. James Canadian of the MJHL in 71 and 72, and in 72-73. He is also an honored member of the Manitoba Baseball Hall of Fame, inducted in 2021. Honourable Speaker, as a hockey dad of 4 sons who've all played Warren minor hockey, it is my pleasure to honour one of our pioneers of hometown hockey history and heritage in our province. I congratulate Mr. Lori Langrel on his induction to Manitoba's Hockey Hall of Fame class of 2024.
The Honourable Member for Fort Garry.
The Red River Toy Library is a beloved resource for the Fort Garry community, making toys available to our residents regardless of their financial circumstances. Families can sign out up to 3 items free of charge for up to 3 weeks at a time. Starting last week, the Toy Library is now open to the public with expanded hours, offering programming not only on Saturday mornings, but on Thursday afternoons as well. The Toy Library offers a diverse range of gently used toys and learning materials collected through donations from the public. When families donate toys to this program, there are also environmental benefits. Extending the lifespan of unused toys by reusing and recycling them not only allows other children to enjoy them, but diverts materials from the landfill. Encouraging children to play is one of the Red River Toy Library's primary objectives. Play promotes creativity as well as cognitive and language development in children. It also provides opportunities for building healthy emotional and social skills. As families meet and interact at the Toy Library, social connections are not only made between children, but between community parents as well. Borrowing and returning from the library reinforces the value of sharing in people of all ages. I'd like to recognize and thank its founders, Ian Scott and Landon Gibson. The Toy Library opened in April 2021, operating in a space provided rent-free by Fort Garry United Church, and has been running successfully ever since. Tireless efforts, time commitment, and dedication of Mr. Scott and Ms. Gibson are laid a strong foundation upon which this program can continue to grow. I'd also like to thank Red River Toy Library's many past and present volunteers and its new administrators from the South Winnipeg Family Information Centre. The dedication shown by these workers directly contributes to a better Fort Garry for our children, families, and neighbours. I invite all community members to visit and engage with the Toy Library and explore what it has to offer, and together we can make a lasting impact on the lives of our Fort Garry neighbours. Please join me in honouring Ian Scott and Langdon Gibson.
Here.
Oral questions. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Honourable Speaker, we on this side of the House have discovered a financial oddity with this NDP government, a very expensive oddity. In fact, this expense is in the amount of $1,485,806.65. And Honourable Speaker, did I mention that this expense by the Minister of Families was a direct award? I'm not sure if most Manitobans understand that a direct award is a contract awarded to a supplier without a competitive process, without even soliciting bids. Why is this minister personally handing out $1.5 billion contracts, and why has she failed to share the details?
The Honourable First Minister.
Yes, the PC party has been documenting a whole litany of financial irregularities this week. It's their former cabinet colleague, Kevin Klein, who is sharing these things with the public. Of course, not from what the member opposite knows, of course, but when we're talking about what the member opposite knows, you can fill in the blanks there. When we're talking about the expenses in question that have raised the prospect of financial election laws being broken here in the province of Manitoba, there were new information pieces shared yesterday, new data put on the record. In particular, a trip home from Mexico from one Candace Bergen, which was apparently part of the campaign to put up the Stand Firm billboards last year. I'm not sure how all of that connects inside the PC caucus's strategy, but perhaps the member opposite would like to take this opportunity to explain that to the people of Manitoba. That's right.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a supplementary question.
Once again, Honourable Speaker, dodging and deflecting. This Premier does it very well. He's still all that showmanship and not a statesman, Honourable Speaker. The $1.4 billion direct award by the Minister of Families for legal services is more money than the Canoe government has allocated for transportation and agriculture, municipal and northern relations, labour and immigration, environment and climate change, and sport, culture, heritage, and tourism combined, Honourable Speaker. We are willing to give the Minister the benefit of the doubt that this was potentially a rounding error part, but it begs the question, what other rounding errors are contained in the government's finances? I'm going to table the document today, Honourable Speaker, but in fact, I don't know if anybody can actually trust this Premier to be the caretaker of taxpayers' dollars, Honourable Speaker.
The Honourable First Minister.
Yeah, to the members opposite who look at the Leader of the Opposition and wonder what exactly is going on there, I have to say we wonder the same thing each and every day. Not least of all because when contacted this past Saturday by the Winnipeg Sun, the member opposite did not challenge any of the reporting. Of course, we know that there were questionable invoices under the auspices of car rentals. There's a whole lot more to come there. But more recently here, with money that was raised from hardworking people across this province who were told that, hey, you know, the PC party has a chance in 2023, what was paid for? Well, a trip from Mexico to Winnipeg. I'll remind folks, of course, at the time, Candace Bergen was in this very house telling other people that Manitoba school children were being brainwashed in our K-12 system. So in addition to explaining these misbegotten expenses, perhaps the member opposite would like to take a stab to explain why he didn't object when he was standing right next to Candace Bergen, making his comment.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a final supplementary question.
So, Honourable Speaker, again, dodging and deflecting, trying to change the channel from the serious allegations that the MLA for Fort Garry brought forward in this House about the abusive and toxicity brought forward by the Premier of Manitoba, the MLA for Fort Rouge. And in addition to that, I know that the member from St. John's is nodding her head and agreeing with the member for Fort Garry, but also the absolute assault that the Premier has done. This isn't the first time we've seen this, Honourable Speaker. I just wish that the member for Fort Rouge would stand up and apologize, and actually apologize also to Manitobans for spending $1.4 billion on a direct award contract from the Department of Families, Honourable Speaker.
The Honourable First Minister.
Yeah, it might be that the member opposite is about to blow the lid off of this whole vast conspiracy, and tomorrow he'll be back here explaining why I'm responsible for the chemtrails all over Manitoba skies. Or it could be that the member opposite is part of a financially and morally bankrupt PC party.
That's right.
That's certainly what it looks like from the outside. People this week are saying, and I quote, in the Winnipeg Sun, today we have a party in panic mode. And where there's smoke, there's fire. The revelation of sketchy campaign expenses is damning. End quote. When we talk about losing the plot, how come the member opposite or anyone else in the PC caucus never says one name? Brian Pallister. The reason why I ask, nobody on that side of the House has won an election in 30 years without Brian Pallister.
The Honourable Member for Roblin.
You're going to have to get with Brady on that chicken box.
The NDP has fallen dismally short of its promise to hire 90 net new paramedics this year. Of the 90 promised, the NDP has only hired 7. I recently spoke with a number of concerned paramedics, several of whom told me that 90 was never a realistic number. They told me that even if every existing paramedicine program ran at full capacity, they wouldn't be able to produce 90 new paramedics in 1 year. They told me someone in government didn't do their homework. We're more than halfway through the fiscal year. Can the Minister of Health explain to Manitobans how their government plans to hire another 83 paramedics by March?
The Honourable First Minister.
Well, we use the 50% of the year remaining to hire more paramedics.
That's right.
This builds on the success that we've already shown in the first half of this year. Whereas for years and years under the Progressive Conservatives, we lost nurses from the front lines. We lost paramedics from rural Manitoba. Where rural Manitobans came here each and every day demanding shorter wait times, guess what happened? 1 year ago today, things changed in our province. We began to staff up the provincial healthcare system. There are hundreds more nurses working at the bedside today, 116 new physicians, including many in rural Manitoba, and of course, many allied health professionals, including the very paramedics that the member opposite acknowledges in the preamble to her question. It seems that the only criticism that the PCs have of us is the great job the NDP is doing. Why aren't you doing more of it sooner?
The Honourable Member for Roblin on a supplementary question.
Earlier this year, paramedicine schools were notified they could drop an important prerequisite from the PCP program. Anatomy and physiology is no longer required for students entering a primary care paramedic program in Manitoba. I'll table an email I received from a concerned paramedic who says, quote, A&P is the foundation of a paramedic, and without a strong foundation, the paramedic will struggle, and the public is going to receive substandard care. No other allied health program allows a student to enter without an A&P background. We are trying to move the profession forward, and this is moving it backwards. Can the Minister of Health explain why standards are being lowered for the primary care paramedic program and what impact this will have on patient care?
The Honourable First Minister.
Perhaps the member opposite would like to know or would like to share with the people of Manitoba why standards are being lowered in the PC party. Time was they stood for fiscal responsibility, at least they claimed to do so before gutting programs designed to help the most vulnerable of Manitobans. But of course, in the past year, we've seen that again, they're approving expenses for trips to Mexico, for car rentals and then passing on the bill to hard-working Manitobans. Now, when we talk about the paramedics, which the member opposite acknowledges that we are staffing up, I want to point out one simple aspect of the records. Throughout two terms in government, 7.5 years, there was a net loss of paramedics in Manitoba. The PC party stands for fewer paramedics working on our highways. We are hiring more.
That's right.
The honourable member for Roblin on a final supplementary question.
I'll quote again from the same email I just tabled. Quote, "The understanding is that this change was forced onto the College of Paramedics of Manitoba by the sitting government to boost graduate numbers." Unquote. Did the NDP government interfere with the operations of an independent regulatory body in a desperate attempt to make their budget commitment a reality?
Absolutely.
The Honourable First Minister.
No. Did a desperate PC party lead to an exodus of paramedics working in rural Manitoba? Yes. Unfortunately, that was very much the case. Rural Manitoba lost 87 paramedics while the PCs were in power.
Shameful.
87 paramedics who could have been there on the double when rural Manitobans needed help. That's in addition to, of course, the multiple emergency departments closed throughout the rural parts of this province. What's the record that we have so far 1 year into office? Well, the member opposite acknowledges we've got more paramedics today than when they left offices. And how are we doing on rural ERs? Well, there are more of those open today than were under their watch too. So once again, what are the PCs banging on their desks on in question period? The NDP's doing a great job, and we can't wait to see more happen sooner.
The Honourable Member for Portage-La Prairie.
Honourable Speaker, I wanted to quote from the Health Minister's mandate letter. Your goal is to make it easier for every Manitoban to access health care at every level, no matter where they live. Can you please explain to the patient from Amaranth, Manitoba, who's going for an MRI without a vehicle, that has an appointment at Boundary Trails at 7 a.m., how are they supposed to get there? And who's paying for this 6-hour trip?
The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Active Living.
As a government, we are making investments and working with our partners to ensure that we're strengthening healthcare across the entire province. The previous government's approach to healthcare was to cut services in Winnipeg, cut services in the north, cut services in rural Manitoba. They went so far as to cut the very resources needed to recruit doctors and professionals to rural Manitoba to provide that care, which is shameful. Our government is not only cleaning up the mess and the damage that they have done, but our government is investing in strengthening those services for Manitobans no matter where they live. We will continue to work each and every day with our partners, with the front lines, to make healthcare better here in our province.
Great job.
The Honourable Member for Portage-La Prairie on a supplementary question.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. On April 9th, I received a letter from 35 doctors in Portage-La Prairie. In their letter, which I will table, the doctors stated, deciding to not fund and staff an MRI scanner in our community will negatively affect patient care in the future. Can the Health Minister please explain why this government is not listening to doctors?
The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
Honourable Speaker, on this side of the House, we respect physicians. We work with doctors, we listen to experts to make informed decisions that strengthen healthcare in this province. I've had the opportunity to talk with physicians in Portage-La Prairie. I've had the opportunity to work directly with our provincial clinical lead for diagnostics and did his due diligence to assess what's happening there. It's important to note that every single doctor highlights the fact that the previous government took no steps whatsoever to boost capacity here in Manitoba. Instead, they cut it. They fired healthcare workers, and they didn't bother to invest to train the healthcare workers needed to actually staff diagnostics. We're investing in strengthening healthcare, hiring more people to the front lines, hundreds more added to the healthcare system, and we're going to keep doing that work for Manitobans in rural Manitoba.
The honourable member for Portage La Prairie on a final supplementary question.
Honourable Speaker, can the Health Minister please explain why they will not accept a contribution of $5 million from the Portage Hospital Foundation to pay for an MRI or even discuss the need for an MRI with the Portage Hospital Foundation? The people who have contributed to this fund deserve to know why a donation to help their region is being refused by this Minister of Health. Thank you.
The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
Honourable Speaker, I had a conversation with a constituent of Portage La Prairie just within the last 48 hours who was shocked to learn that her representative had been misrepresenting information to constituents for the past several months. She was shocked to learn while that member stands up and goes out in community and tells them that $5 million is all it takes to buy an MRI and staff it and run it, doing that knowing full well that that is completely and patently false. Yeah. That member stands up and misleads community members in the hopes of advancing his own political career. On this side of the House, we stand in truth, we make investments that strengthen healthcare, and we work with professionals and leaders to make healthcare better. We don't advance mistruths and false information for our own selfish political gain.
The Honourable Member for Spruce Woods.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The efforts of the NDP government to cancel any new school construction across this province are coming to fruition. Now we see, coming out in the news this morning, that a German language school program that's run successfully for 40 years is at risk, with students who have been in the program for a number of years being denied to continue their education in this program because of this government's failure to build adequate school space for expanding student populations. So will this new Minister of Education come forward with her plan to build more school capacity in this province?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Honourable Speaker, for years Manitobans had a government that cut education, and they now know they got a government that is investing in schools and investing in education. We know the PCs are desperate. They are desperate to change the channel from the car rental fiasco, but Honourable Speaker, Manitobans deserve answers. They spent $3,800 on a falsified invoice, and taxpayers paid 25% of that. We need to get to the bottom of this, and the Leader of the Opposition needs to be accountable. You can't just change the letterhead and expect the problem to go away. Will he stand up today and apologize on behalf of his party for ignoring the red flags that a PC staffer raised?
The Honourable Member for Spruce Woods on a supplementary question.
Well, you know, we know the Minister of Finance has lots of leadership aspirations of his own, and he wants to take on all the files on that side of the government. But the question was for the new Minister of Education, specific to a German language education program that operates in the northeast end of Winnipeg, where she represents. What is she going to do to build more school capacity for her constituents and everyone else on the northeast side of Winnipeg?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Honourable Speaker, what we want to know is if they were renting a car, why didn't they just use enterprise or budget or Well, that's a good question. We still do not know. We still do not have the answers we need on the car rental scandal. As we were saying, a PC whistleblower raised concerns and was ignored. This isn't some random NDP insider. This is a PC accountant within their party that raised these concerns. He said in media, and I quote, "I am most disappointed with PC party president Brent Pools. He avoided me and didn't want to listen to my concerns." End quote. Will the member apologize on behalf of his party president for refusing to listen to these legitimate concerns?
The Honourable Member for Spruce Woods on a final supplementary question.
Well, the only people who are going to be disappointed after today's interaction, Honourable Speaker, are the parents of students who have had long-standing attendance in the German language school program in Northeast Winnipeg, because this finance minister has no answers for them as to why their students can't continue in the program, and no plan to build more schools in this province. 14 new schools in 7.5 years, 0 in 1 year for them, with a plan to build 0 moving forward. When will this finance minister get to work and build new schools for Manitobans?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Take us to go see the 14 schools right now.
Honourable Speaker, there isn't a single Manitoban that believes that the members opposite invest in education over the last 7 years. They know we're doing that work. When faced with a falsified invoice, the PC whistleblower wrote, quote, "Can you imagine if donors knew their funds were used to pay for this?" End quote. He doesn't need to imagine anymore, Honourable Speaker. In fact, we're already hearing from PC members who've cancelled their donations since the news broke on Sunday. On this side of the House, we're investing in fixing healthcare and breakfast in schools for children. On that side of the House, they're investing in intimacy coaches and trips to Mexico. Will the leader of the PC party apologize to his donors right now for misusing their money?
The Honourable Member for Agassiz.
Honourable Speaker, constituents of mine are raising concerns over lack of access to affordable childcare. They've taken the initiative to raise almost $500,000 to get a daycare in their community. According to the province's childcare search website, there are no spaces available near Austin or McGregor, no spaces in Portage La Prairie, and no full-time spaces in Brandon. We know this government has cut daycare spaces and new schools. So can the minister explain what the plan is to ensure that all Manitobans have access to childcare?
The Honourable Minister for Advanced Education.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And it's a pleasure to stand up in this chamber to talk about the saga of the PC election spending scandal continuing. More news has come to light about questionable invoices, less clarity around who knew what, and the silencing of whistleblowing staff. Falsified records. I would answer one if you ever asked one. Broken election laws, whistleblowers. It's safe to say this story is not going away. You all know it's not going away. It's a real mess. That's what the opposition party is dealing with, a real mess.
The Honourable Member for Agassiz on a supplementary question.
Honourable Speaker, the NDP have no plan for daycare. That's what we heard in that. Affordable daycare for Manitobans is important. We have families in my constituency paying upward of $7,000 for their childcare. That's $14,000 for children, for 2 children. We are in an affordability crisis. Rural Manitobans need access to $10 a day daycare spaces. Under the former PC government, we had a plan to open thousands of more spaces across the province. Can the minister inform the House what their plan is to ensure all rural families have access to affordable childcare close to home?
The Honourable Minister of Advanced Education and Training.
Well, we all know how these plans panned out for the PCs, and the back of the napkin in a small town cafe isn't a plan. Just like the schools, the daycares were the same. But speaking of writing shady napkin plans, some more are connected to a well-known politician. More shadow companies offering some real service variety. More and more questions, fewer and fewer answers, and people of Manitoba deserve to know. Given that many invoices lack GST, will the PC members clarify that their party isn't also committing tax fraud? Why did the party feel it necessary to fund Candice Bergen's trip to Mexico in the spring of 2023? And I wonder how her
time
mega
has
hat went over it.
The Honourable Member for Agassiz on a final supplementary question.
So again, a clear answer there from the NDP. They have no plan for daycare for Manitobans. Honourable Speaker, and sadly this is not just the case in my constituency, but across many communities in Western Manitoba. Parents are organizing and raising funds to support bringing childcare to their community. This government made a commitment to Manitobans that they would build accessible and affordable childcare spaces. So can the minister tell us when exactly can the residents of Western Manitoba expect to see $10 a day childcare spaces in their communities?
Good. The Honourable Minister for Advanced Education and Training.
The answer to that question is stay tuned. But it's not surprising, Honourable Speaker, that when we see how the internal PC party finances were handled, that those members left Manitobans with a $2 billion deficit. Right. Their financial acumen, their ability to responsibly hold the purse strings of their own party, let alone the province, is deeply, deeply called into question. It doesn't bode well for their upcoming leadership race, but I suppose when it comes to PC leadership races, questionable ethics are par for the course. No lessons learned on that side of the House, it appears. On this side of the House, we're focused on working for Manitobans.
The Honourable Member for Brandon West.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I quote, I've been coaching baseball for 10 years, and this is the first year I had to make sure I made it to the dugout before even the first kid stepped foot in the dugout or onto the field to scour the benches for items like this. Note, they're not the only one I found this year, end quote. This was the comment shared by Little League Baseball coach Jason Delorier in reference to the minister's belief that school children can safely dispose of used and dirty needles. Ooh. Coach Delorier attached a picture of the used needles laying on the dugout bench, which I table. Children should be catching baseballs, not hepatitis. Will the minister be making hypodermic needle, puncture-resistant, latex-coated shield gloves freely available?
Member's time has expired. Before I recognize the minister to answer, I'd remind all members that when the speaker stands up and says your time has expired, that means it's time for you to quit speaking and sit down. Your mic has been shut off as soon as I stand up and say that, so it's not a matter on the record anyway. The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Acting Minister of Education.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And thank you to the member opposite for the question. We are working with the affected community on this important issue, and I have full confidence in the minister that we will be able to address the issue going forward. But another thing I'd like to talk about, Honourable Speaker, is the fact that today Kevin Klein's Winnipeg Sun confirmed that a check for $3,800 was sent by members opposite to an intimacy coach. Manitoba, Honourable Speaker, has many legitimate car rental services. This surely was not one of them. Manitobans deserve to know what members opposite found so special about this company that they falsified financial records instead of paying a legitimate car rental service. Will the leader opposite get up today and explain what his party was really doing in their dying days of their failed government?
The Honourable Member for Brandon West on a supplementary question.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. A quote, this is not harm reduction, this is harm redistribution. You're only fooling yourself if you think this is reducing harm to others in society. These crazy programs based on enabling needs to stop now, end quote. This was the perspective shared by Coach Delorier, who now has to worry about his own health instead of just the odd foul ball. More and more Manitobans see the minister's public injection sites as harm redistribution. Why is this minister redistributing harm instead of reducing it?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister of Environment, Climate Change and Acting Minister of Early Education and Early Childhood Learning.
Honourable Speaker, this side of the House will take no lessons from the member opposite when it comes to harm reduction, something they did not believe in and something they did absolutely nothing about for 7.5 years. What they did do in the last election, Honourable Speaker, is they spent their donors' hours money on stand firm billboard ads, trips to Mexico, and apparently intimacy coaches. Today, a paper co-owned by PCs published a piece that stated, and I quote, "Today we have a party in panic mode. Where there's smoke, there is fire. The revelation of sketchy campaign expenses is damning." The member of Fort White is at the center of the Sun's allegations, and more details are coming out every day. We expect more tomorrow, I'm sure. Will members opposite commit to investigating his role before the leadership deadline next week?
The honourable member for Brandon West on a final supplementary question.
Well, thank you, Honourable Speaker. This minister won't send properly equipped used needle crews to clean up her mess. The minister won't provide children with hypodermic needle puncture-resistant gloves. It seems the only thing this minister is providing are crack pipes and syringes. For the information of the residents of Swan River and Swan Valley West, I will make this question clear. Minister, who is responsible for safely collecting and disposing of used needles in this community? Because we know it is not her.
The Honourable Acting Minister of Education and Early Childhood Learning.
Honourable Speaker, there is a mess to clean up, and it is the mess that is caused after 7.5 years of a reckless government, a government that did not care about Manitobans. We have full confidence in our minister, and we are so proud of the work that she is doing. But Honourable Speaker, the Sun also reported today that members opposite spent almost $1,000 to fly Candace Bergen back from Mexico to make a speech here in the legislature. When she got here, she told a room full of MLAs that Manitoba children were being brainwashed by their teachers. Shame on all of you. She was standing next to the then education minister, the MLA for Lactabani. Will he get up today and apologize for failing to stand up for Manitoba teachers when he was the education minister?
The honourable member for Tyndall Park.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Advocates in the Dauphin area are concerned that a recent decision by the Mountain View School Board to ban all flags except provincial, federal, and school flags was made with ill intention towards the 2S LGBTQ+ community. In the government's 2023 throne speech, it was stated that in every part of the province, our government will ensure that queer and trans students in Manitoba are safe, respected, and know they belong. Honourable Speaker, does this recent action by the Mountain View School Board align with this statement?
The Honourable Acting Minister of Education and Early Childhood Learning.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And it is a privilege. I would like to start by just sharing my feelings that I feel that it is a real privilege and an honour and a duty to serve Manitobans and to help this team in this role as acting education minister. We are a team, and we are going to get through this time as a team. I have full confidence in this team, and I would just like to take a quick moment to speak directly to our team member, the MLA for Transcona, and his family, who care about him deeply, and let him know that we miss him greatly and we look forward to him coming back to this House. I will answer the question in the next answer.
The honourable member for Tyndall Park on a supplementary question.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The Mountain View School Board made this decision without quorum, which has only created more concern about their intention. Will this government do as stated and work with committees and school divisions to ensure every family is welcome and included in their school?
Good question.
The Honourable Acting Minister of Education and Early Childhood Learning.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I thank the member opposite for raising this question. We do understand that there have been issues raised by the community about school board governance. That's why our government took action, and we appointed an oversight panel that has been appointed to assist the Mountain View School Division Board of Trustees to focus their efforts on creating safe learning environments for all of our students. There's more work to do. There's more work to come. We are here to work with that community and support all of those families, and specifically those vulnerable children.
The honourable member for Tyndall Park on a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Last June, the Mountain View Superintendent was removed from his position because he expressed support for a local pride parade. 3 trustees resigned days after, and Honourable Speaker...
Order, please. I would ask the 2 leaders to please quit hollering back and forth across the House, and I would ask the Leader of the official opposition to remain silent while the Speaker is talking. The Honourable Member for Tyndall Park, please restart your question.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Last June, the Mountain View Superintendent was removed from his position because he expressed support for a local pride parade. 3 trustees resigned days after. And Honourable Speaker, another long-term trustee resigned this past Monday because, and I quote, "The conduct he witnessed by board members is not something he could support or continue to be associated with." What is this government doing to ensure the safety and well-being of these students specifically, and specifically with an eye on diversity, inclusion, and reconciliation as promised?
The Honourable Acting Minister of Education and Early Childhood Learning.
It's been said once before, maybe twice or maybe 10 times, but it is a new day here in Manitoba, and thank goodness for the students in that school division, and thank goodness to all of Manitobans for electing a government that stands firmly with the 2S LGBTQ. I apologize, I'm getting a little bit tongue-tied here. What I'm trying to say, Honourable Speaker, is that our bench stands firmly. We will always stand up for kids. We will always stand up for families. We will always stand up for inclusivity, unlike the members opposite, who in fact ran their election campaign attacking the very children that we're talking about. It is a new day here in Manitoba. We will always stand up for queer kids. We will always stand up for their families.
Member's time has expired. The Honourable Member for Assiniboia.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. People don't get sick exclusively during business hours, and the needs of Manitobans vary across this province. That is why I was so excited when our NDP government announced the opening of an extended hours primary care clinic in Manitoba at the Grace Hospital. The Stephenson PCs made no effort to increase access to primary care, but we know how important it is for Manitoba families, parents, and workers. Will the Minister of Health tell us more about the extended hours clinic and the benefits it will have for all Manitobans?
The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
I thank my colleague for Assiniboia for that great question. I am so proud to be part of a government that listens to Manitobans. The extended hours primary care clinic at the Grace Hospital will make sure that Manitobans can see a family doctor in the evenings, on the weekends, and during holidays. Because we understand as a government that when it comes to your family's health, there are no off hours. Manitobans need access all the time. And this means that fewer people will have to take time away from work to bring their kids and their families to appointments. There's been a gap for hardworking Manitobans in care that our government is working hard to close, and we promise to make healthcare more accessible, and we're doing that work with the front lines and with our experts to get that done for all Manitobans.
Is there a question from the official opposition? If not, then we will move on to the next order. If there's no more questions from the official opposition at this time, then we will move on to the next member in rotation. So I will now recognize the Honourable Member for Fort Garry.
The Premier borrowed $340 million for a gas tax holiday. The overwhelming amount goes to business and corporations with very little trickling down to Manitobans. CCPA estimates that the average driver will save $15 per month. Now, the Premier made a promise to Manitobans that the gas tax holiday would reduce their grocery bill. Manitobans know that's not true. In fact, grocery bills are at an all-time high. This Premier broke his promise. Will he take responsibility? Will the Premier now admit that when it comes to making groceries affordable, he's done nothing, he's tried nothing, and he's all out of ideas?
Fruit Loops.
The Honorable Minister of Environment, Climate Change, and Acting Minister of Education and Early Childhood Learning.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and thank you for the rousing welcome from the opposition benches. I'd like to take a minute again to talk about our team. On this side of the House, we are a united team. We are united behind our Premier. By the way, Honourable Speaker, I don't know if you heard the news, still the most popular Premier across the country. We are united. We are so proud of our plan. We are proud of our gas tax holiday. Manitobans love the gas tax holiday. We are proud of the extension. We are saving Manitobans money each and every single day.
The Honourable Member for Fort Garry on a supplementary question.
There are many Manitobans who don't drive, that don't own a car, including low-income Manitobans and seniors. They will see no benefit from the gas tax holiday. When the Premier first announced this gas tax holiday, he promised he would lower food prices. Yeah. The Premier even went further, and I quote, expected the grocery chains to pass on the savings to Manitoba. He went even further and said, if we don't see those savings materialize, then that's when we're going to follow up on these further steps. And he went even still further and said he would call the bluff of the grocery stores, and I'll table those comments here today.
The Pop-Tart, please.
So today, it's time for us to call the Premier's bluff. Can the Premier tell Manitobans why their grocery bills didn't go down and have remained at an all-time high?
Time has expired. The Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Honourable Speaker, the member opposite was glad to campaign and win his seat on the back of that promise, a promise that was kept, a promise that Manitobans appreciate, and a promise that Manitobans are saving money at the pump each and every single day. Manitoba continues to enjoy the lowest inflation across the country, and the member opposite, quite frankly, is chewing on sour grapes.
The time for oral questions has expired, and I have a statement for the House. Order, please. Order, please. Before I call petitions, I need to advise the House of an inadvertent omission on today's order paper. The name of the Honourable Member for Swan River was accidentally removed from the list of members eligible to present petitions. This was an Assembly mistake, and we have now corrected the online version of the order paper. We have also printed select copies of the corrected order paper, and if any member would like a revised copy, please ask the clerks. Accordingly, if the member for Swan River wishes to read a petition today, I will be recognizing him. Thank you. Petitions. The Honourable Member for Interlake Gimli.
Honourable Speaker, I wish to present the following petition to the Legislative Assembly. To the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba, the background to this petition is as follows. 1. The federal government has mandated a consumption-based carbon tax with the stated goal of financially pressuring Canadians to make decisions to reduce their carbon emissions. 2. Manitoba Hydro estimates that even with a high-efficiency furnace, the carbon tax is costing the average family over $200 annually, even more for those with older furnaces. 3. Home heating in Manitoba is not a choice or a decision for Manitobans to make. It is a necessity of life, with an average of almost 200 days below 0 degrees Celsius annually.
The federal government has selectively removed the carbon tax off of home heating oil in the Atlantic provinces of Canada, but has indicated they have no intention to provide the same relief to Manitobans heating their homes. Manitoba Hydro indicates that natural gas heating is one of the most affordable options available to Manitobans, and it can be cost prohibitive for households to replace their heating source. 6, premiers across Canada, including the Atlantic provinces that benefit from this decision, have collectively sent a letter to the federal government calling on it to extend the carbon tax exemption to all forms of home heating, with the exception of Manitoba. 7, Manitoba is one of the only provincial jurisdictions to have not agreed with the stance that all Canadian home heating bills should be exempt from the carbon tax. Provincial leadership in other jurisdictions have already committed to removing the federal carbon tax from home heating bills. We petition the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba as follows: to urge the provincial government to remove the federal carbon tax on home heating bills for all Manitobans, to provide them with much needed relief. This petition is signed by Kylie Specula, Juliana Roberts, Brett Johnson, and many, many other Manitobans.
The Honourable Member for Tyndall Park.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. I wish to present the following petition to the Legislative Assembly. The background to this petition is as follows. Number 1, the Manitoba Highways Department has expressed a desire to have the Centerport Canada Way to Chief Peguis Trail extension developed to follow Klimke Road with a termination point on the Centerpoint Canada Way. Number 2, the proposed path would eliminate a portion of Little Mountain Park, which abrupts Klimke Road, private residences, and the neighboring Little Mountain Sportsplex.
Thank you.
Number 3, although located in the RM of Rosser, Little Mountain Park is one of Winnipeg's valuable green spaces located within the perimeter highway boundary, and is the only significant green space in the northwestern sector of the city. Number 4, Little Mountain Park has been providing recreational opportunities and natural habitat for local wildlife since it was established in 1965. It contains a tall grass prairie ecosystem on the ecologically sensitive land, complete with flora and fauna, and is a destination for tourists from all over. Number 5, the impact of the growing industrial port of the resultant redirected traffic through this area would not only disrupt access to the nearby sportsplex and golf course with the additional heavy traffic, but would also pose environmental threats and disrupt local wildlife in the nearby Little Mountain Park. Number 6, the province of Manitoba has a stated responsibility to protect the environment and green spaces for the benefit of all Manitobans, with policies and legislation that support economic development, investment, trade, and natural resources, and the conservation of species and the ecosystem to conserve these precious resources for future generations. Number 7, the encroachment of the proposed highway must be considered a threat to the Little Mountain Park designated ecosystem. Number 8, an earlier proposal utilized a different route that followed the existing Old Sturgeon Road footprint, circumventing Little Mountain Park and the Sportsplex, while still providing suitable access to the industrial area with a termination point between Mollard Road and Jefferson Avenue. We petition the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba as follows: Number 1, to urge the provincial government to recognize Little Mountain Park as an at-risk ecosystem and as a potential ecosystem preservation zone. Number 2, to urge the provincial government to recognize the impact of the proposed route on Little Mountain Park, the Players Course, the neighboring Little Mountain Sportsplex, and the citizens and tourists who use and visit them. And number 3, to urge the provincial government to seek an alternate route that would avoid the area while still providing adequate ingress and egress to the Centre Port Canada Way, such as Old Sturgeon Road route, and avoid expropriating land unnecessarily. This petition has been signed by many Manitobans.
Got to hit it harder. Sorry. The honourable member for Brandon West.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. I wish to present the following petition to the Legislative Assembly. To the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba. The background to this petition is as follows. Due to the evolving scientific evidence, the Canadian Cancer Society is now urging all provinces and territories to lower the starting age for breast screening to 40. Number 2, based off 2023 treatment standards, it is estimated that screening women annually for breast cancer starting at age 40 will save Canadian healthcare systems $460 million annually. Number 3, after non-melanoma skin cancers, breast cancer is the most common form of cancer among Canadian women. 1 in 8 Canadian women will be diagnosed with breast cancer during their lifetime, and 1 in 36 will die from it. This is 30,500 diagnoses and 5,500 deaths every year, and 84 diagnoses and 15 deaths every day. Number 4, early detection of breast cancer will lead to better outcomes in patients with better odds of survival and less severe cases. Women in their 40s who have access to mammograms have a 44% lower mortality rate from breast cancer than those who don't receive screening. Number 5, every other province and territory in Canada has already lowered the breast cancer screening age or announced their intention to do so. Other provinces in Canada have already commenced the work of expanding screening programs and hiring additional technologists in their public health care system. Number 6, Manitoba is currently behind the rest of the country and has no formal plan to increase screening capacity or lower the breast cancer screening age. Number 7, lowering the breast cancer screening age to 40 in Manitoba will reduce long-term costs to the healthcare system because cancers that are caught early are typically less complicated to treat. We petition the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba as follows: to urge the provincial government to immediately put forward a plan to increase breast cancer screening capacity and lower the breast cancer screening age to 40. Honourable Speaker, this petition has been signed by Ron Shalak, Ted Snur, Susan McMillan, and many, many other fine Manitobans.
Oh, wait, yeah.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, I wish to present the following petition to the Legislative Assembly. To the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba, the background to this petition is as follows. Number one, the federal government has mandated a consumption-based carbon tax with the stated goal of financially pressuring Canadians to make decisions to reduce their carbon emissions. Number two, Manitoba Hydro estimates that even with a high-efficiency furnace, the carbon tax is costing the average family over $200 annually, even more for those with older furnaces. Number three, home heating in Manitoba is not a choice or a decision for Manitobans to make. It is a necessity of life, with an average of almost 200 days below 0 degrees Celsius annually. Number four, the federal government has selectively removed the carbon tax off of home heating oil in the Atlantic provinces of Canada, but has indicated they have no intention to provide the same relief to Manitobans heating their homes. Number five, Manitoba Hydro indicates that natural gas heating is one of the most affordable options available to Manitobans, and it can be cost prohibitive for households to replace their heating source. Number six, premiers across Canada, including in the Atlantic provinces that benefit from this decision, have collectively sent a letter to the federal government calling on it to extend the carbon tax exception to all forms of heating, home heating, with the exception of Manitoba. Number seven, Manitoba is one of the only provincial jurisdictions to have not agreed with the stance that all Canadians' home heating bills should be exempt from the carbon tax. Number eight, provincial leadership in other jurisdictions have already committed to removing the federal carbon tax from home heating bills. We petition the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba as follows: to urge the provincial government to remove the federal carbon tax on home heating bills for all Manitobans to provide them much needed relief. This petition is signed by Shanpreet Sehgal, Reagan Ingeberg, R. Workington, and many, many more fine Manitobans. Honourable Deputy Speaker.
The Honourable Member of Portage la Prairie.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. I wish to present the following petition to the Legislative Assembly. The background of this petition is as follows. Due to the evolving scientific evidence, the Canadian Cancer Society is now urging all provinces and territories to lower the starting age for breast cancer to 40. Based off 2023 treatment standards, it is estimated that screening women annually for breast cancer starting at age 40 will save the Canadian health system $460 million annually. Number three, after a non-melanoma skin cancers, breast cancer is the most common form of cancer among Canadian women. 1 in 8 Canadian women will be diagnosed with breast cancer during their lifetime, and 1 in 36 will die from it. This is 30,500 diagnoses and 5,500 deaths every year, and 84 diagnoses and 15 deaths every day. Number four, early detection of breast cancer will lead to a better outcome in patients with better odds of survival and less severe cases. Women in their 40s who have access to mammograms have a 44% lower mortality rate from breast cancer than those who don't receive screening. Number five, every other province and territory in Canada has already lowered the breast cancer screening age or announced their intentions to do so. Other provinces in Canada have already commenced the work of expanding screening programs and hiring additional technologists into the public health care system. Number six, Manitoba is currently behind the rest of the country and has no formal plan to increase its screening capacity or lower the breast cancer screening age. Number 7, lowering the breast cancer screening age to 40 in Manitoba will reduce long-term costs to the healthcare system because cancers that are caught earlier are typically complicated to treat, less complicated to treat. We petition the Legislative Assembly, the Legislation Assembly of Manitoba as follows: to urge the provincial government to immediately put forward a plan to increase the breast screening treatment capacity and lower the breast cancer screening age to 40. This is signed by Tara Lee Ricard, Justin Sesiak, Barbara Coelho, and many more Manitobans. Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Well done.
The Honourable Member for Agassiz.
Here, here.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. I wish to present the following petition to the Legislative Assembly. To the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba. These are the reasons for this petition. Number 1, persons struggling with mental health as their sole condition may access medical assistance in dying unless Parliament intervenes. Number 2, suicidality is often a symptom of mental illness, and suicide is the second leading cause of death for Canadians between the age of 10 and 19. Number 3, there have been reports of the unsolicited introduction of medical assistance in dying to non-seeking persons, including Canadian veterans, as a solution for their medical and mental health issues. Number 4, legal and medical experts are deeply concerned that permitting Canadians suffering from depression and other mental illnesses to access euthanasia would undermine suicide prevention efforts and risk normalizing suicide as a resolution for those suffering from mental illness. Number 5, the federal government is bound by the Charter of Rights and Freedoms to advance and protect the life, liberty, and security of its citizens. Number 6, Manitobans consider it a priority to ensure that adequate supports are in place for the mental health of all Canadians. Number 7, vulnerable Manitobans must be given suicide prevention counseling instead of suicide assistance. Number 8, the federal government should focus on increasing mental health supports to provinces and improve access to these supports instead of offering medical assistance in dying for those with mental illness. We petition the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba as follows. Number 1, to urge the provincial government to lobby the federal government to stop the expansion of medical assistance in dying to those for whom mental illness is the sole condition. Number 2, to urge the provincial government to lobby the federal government to protect Canadians struggling with mental illness by facilitating treatment, recovery, and medical assistance in living, not death. This has been signed by many, many, many Manitobans.
The Honourable Member for Midland.
Honourable Speaker, I wish to present the following petition to the Legislative Assembly. These are the reasons for this petition. 1, persons struggling with mental health as their sole condition may access medical assistance in dying unless Parliament intervenes. 2, suicidality is often a symptom of mental illness, and suicide is the second leading cause of death for Canadians between the age of 10 and 19. 3, there have been reports of the unsolicited introduction of medical assistance in dying to non-seeking persons, including Canadian veterans, as a solution for the medical and mental health issues. 4, legal and medical experts are deeply concerned that permitting Canadians suffering from depression and other mental illnesses to access euthanasia would undermine suicide prevention efforts and risk normalizing suicide as a solution for those suffering from mental illness. 5, the federal government is bound by the Charter of Rights and Freedoms to advance and protect the life, liberty, and security of its citizens. 6, Manitobans consider it a priority to ensure that adequate supports are in place for the mental health of all Canadians. 7, vulnerable Manitobans must be given suicide prevention counseling instead of suicide assistance. 8, federal government should focus on increasing mental health supports to provinces and improve access to these supports instead of offering medical assistance in dying for those with mental illness. We petition the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba as follows. 1, to urge the provincial government to lobby the federal government to stop the expansion of medical assistance in dying to those for whom mental illness is the sole condition. 2, to urge the provincial government to lobby the federal government to protect Canadians struggling with mental illness by facilitating treatment, recovery, and medical assistance in living, not death. These are signed by Megan Vischer, Norman Vendendal, Heather Veldman, and many, many more Manitobans.
The honourable member for Borderland.
Honourable Speaker, I wish to present the following petition to the Legislative Assembly. To the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba. These are the reasons for this petition. 1, persons struggling with mental health as their sole condition may access medical assistance in dying unless Parliament intervenes. 2, suicidality is often a symptom of mental illness, and suicide is the second leading cause of death for Canadians between the age of 10 and 19. 3, there have been reports of the unsolicited introduction of medical assistance in dying to non-seeking persons, including Canadian veterans, as a solution for their medical and mental health issues. 4, legal and medical experts are deeply concerned that permitting Canadians suffering from depression and other mental illnesses to access euthanasia would undermine suicide prevention efforts and risk normalizing suicide as a solution for those suffering from mental illness. 5, the federal government is bound by the Charter of Rights and Freedoms to advance and protect the life, liberty, and security of its citizens. 6, Manitobans consider it a priority to ensure that adequate supports are in place for the mental health of all Canadians. 7, vulnerable Manitobans must be given suicide prevention counseling instead of suicide assistance. 8, the federal government should focus on increasing mental health supports to provinces and improve access to these supports instead of offering medical assistance in dying for those with mental illness. We petition the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba as follows. 1, to urge the provincial government to lobby the federal government to stop the expansion of medical assistance in dying to those for whom mental illness is the sole condition, and 2, to urge the provincial government to lobby the federal government to protect Canadians struggling with mental illness by facilitating treatment, recovery, and medical assistance in living, not death. This petition is signed by Pete Rempel, Martha Rempel, Bill Rempel, and many, many Manitobans.
The honourable member for Morden Winkler.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. I wish to present the following petition to the Legislative Assembly.
Hi, Josh.
To the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba. These are the reasons for this petition. Number 1, persons struggling with mental health as their sole condition may access medical assistance in dying unless Parliament intervenes. Number 2, suicidality is often a symptom of mental illness, and suicide is the second leading cause of death for Canadians between age 10 and 19. 3, there have been reports of unsolicited introduction of medical assistance in dying to non-seeking persons, including Canadian veterans, and a solution for their medical and mental health issues. Number 4, legal and medical experts are deeply concerned that permitting Canadians suffering from depression and other mental illnesses to access euthanasia would undermine suicide prevention efforts and risk normalizing suicide as a solution for those suffering from mental illness. Number 5, the federal government is bound by the Charter of Rights and Freedoms to advance and protect the life, liberty, and security of its citizens. Number 6, Manitobans consider it a priority to ensure that adequate supports are in place for the mental health of all Canadians. Number 7, vulnerable Manitobans must be given suicide prevention counseling instead of suicide assistance. Number 8, the federal government should focus on increasing mental health supports to provinces and improve access to these supports instead of offering medical assistance in dying for those with mental illness. We petition the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba as follows. Number 1, to urge the provincial government to lobby the federal government to stop the expansion of medical assistance in dying to those for whom mental illness is the sole condition. To urge the provincial government to lobby the federal government to protect Canadians struggling with mental illness by facilitating treatment, recovery, and medical assistance in living, not death. This petition has been signed by Peter Dick, Brittany Thiessen, and Steve Ackerson, and many, many more Manitobans. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Spruce Woods.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. I wish to present the following petition to the Legislative Assembly. To the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba. The background to this petition is as follows. Number 1, Provincial Trunk Highway 2, or PTH2, is a 315-kilometer, 196-mile highway that runs from the Saskatchewan-Manitoba border to Winnipeg's Perimeter Highway. Number 2, a significant portion of PTH2 runs through the constituency of Spruce Woods, from the border of the rural municipality of Pipestone and the rural municipality of Sifton to the border of the rural municipality of Victoria and the rural municipality of Norfolk Treeherne. Number 3, this route is historically significant as it follows the original path taken in 1874 by the Northwest Mounted Police in their march west from Fort Dufferin to Fort Whoop-Up. Number 4, PTH2 is a significant commuting route for Westman families and is also utilized by those in the trade, commerce, tourism, agriculture, and agri-food industries. Number 5, the condition of PTH2 from the east side of the town of Souris straight through to the hamlet of Delow is in an unacceptable state of disrepair. Number 6, the newly appointed Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure has confirmed the department has no plan to refurbish this stretch of road until the 2028-2029 construction season. Number 7, the Minister outlined that the current 2028-2029 construction plan does not include the stretch of PTH 2 that runs through the town of Souris, but instead starts on the west side of town. Number 8, the communities in the area have been clear that any reconstruction of PTH 2 must include the stretch that runs through the town of Souris. Number 9, the Minister and the Premier have a duty to respond to infrastructure needs identified by rural communities. We petition the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba as follows. Number 1, to urge the Premier and the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure to immediately prioritize the reconstruction of Provincial Trunk Highway 2 in the upcoming construction season. Number 2, to urge the provincial government to include the stretch of Provincial Trunk Highway 2 that runs through the town of Souris in its reconstruction plans. This petition has been signed by Gail Williamson, Disha Patel, Jerry Williams, and many more fine Manitobans.
The Honourable Member for Lakeside.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I wish to present the following petition to the Legislative Assembly. To the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba, the background of this petition is as follows. Number 1, in 2022, according to Statistics Canada, there was an 11.4% increase in food prices. Number 2, staple food products such as baked goods, margarine, and other oils, dairy products, and eggs have seen some of the largest price increases. Number 3, agriculture and the agri-food sectors contribute close to 10% of Manitoba's GDP. 4, there are increased costs added at every step of the process for Manitoba's agriculture producers. In order to make 18 cents from one bread loaf worth of wheat, farmers are paying carbon tax at every stage of production to grow the crop and get it to market. 5, grain drying, fertilizer, chemical production, mushroom farming, hog operations, the cost of heating a livestock barn, machine shops, and utility buildings are all examples of how the carbon tax on natural gas and other fuel costs farmers and consumers more each year. Number 6, in food production, there are currently no viable alternatives to natural gas and propane. The carbon tax takes money away from farmers, making them less profitable and hindering rural agricultural producers' ability to invest in upgrades and improve efficiency while reducing emissions. 7, the provincial government neglected farmers in the 6 month fuel tax holiday until the opposition critic and local stakeholder groups called for their inclusion. 8. Other provincial jurisdictions and leaders have taken action on calling on the federal government to remove the punishing carbon tax and or stop collecting the carbon tax altogether. We petition the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba as follows: to urge the provincial government to call on the federal government to remove the punishing carbon tax on natural gas and other fuels and farm inputs for Manitoba agriculture producers and the agri-food sector to decrease the costs of putting food on the table for Manitoba consumers. This petition has been signed by Sean Steeves, Lynn Steeves, Sahib Nanda, and many, many Manitobans.
The Honourable Member for La Vérendrye.
Oh, thank you, Honourable Deputy Assistant Speaker. Honourable Speaker, I wish to present the following petition to the Legislative Assembly. To the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba. The background to this petition is as follows. 1. Over 25,000 vehicles per day cross the Louise Bridge, which has served as a vital link for vehicular traffic between Northeast Winnipeg and the downtown for the last 113 years. The current structure will undoubtedly be declared unsafe in a few years as it has deteriorated extensively and now functionally obsolete, and therefore more subject to more frequent unplanned repairs and cannot be widened to accommodate future traffic capacity. 3. As far back as 2008, the City of Winnipeg has studied where the new replacement bridge should be situated. 4. After including the bridge replacement in the city's 5-year capital budget forecast in 2009, the new bridge became a short-term construction priority in the city's transportation master plan of 2011. 5. City capital and budget plans identified replacement of the Louise Bridge on a site just east of the bridge and expropriated homes there on the south side of Nairn Avenue in anticipation of a 2015 start. 6. In 2014, the new city administration did not make use of available federal infrastructure funds. 7. The new Louise Bridge Committee began its campaign to demand a new bridge, and its surveys confirmed residents wanted a new bridge beside the current bridge, with the old bridge kept open for local traffic. 8. The city tethered the Louise Bridge replacement issue to its new transportation master plan and Eastern Corridor project. Its recommendations have now identified the location of the new Louise Bridge to be placed just to the west of the current bridge, not to the east as originally proposed. 9. The city's expropriation process has begun. The $6.35 million street upgrade of Nairn Avenue from Watt Street to the 113-year-old bridge is complete. 10. The new city administration has delayed the decision on the Louise Bridge for a minimum of 1 year and possibly up to 10 years, unless the province steps in on behalf of Northeast Winnipeg residents and completes the overdue link. 11. The Premier has a duty to direct the provincial government to provide financial assistance to the city so it can complete this long overdue vital link to Northeast Winnipeg and Transcona. We petition the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba as follows. 1, to urge the Premier to financially assist the City of Winnipeg on building this 3-lane bridge in each direction to maintain this vital link between Northeast Winnipeg, Transcona, and the downtown. 2, to urge the provincial government to recommend that the City of Winnipeg keep the old bridge fully open to traffic while the new bridge is under construction. 3, to urge the provincial government to consider the feasibility of keeping the old bridge open for active transportation in the future. This petition has been signed by Joel Turon, Greg Bagheera, Jason Tustavarik, and many, many Manitobans.
The Honourable Member for Swan River.
Deputy Speaker.
Here. Yeah. It's about time you got here.
I wish to present the following petition to the Legislative Assembly. To the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba, the background to this petition is as follows. Provincial Road 275, known as Ditch Road, because there's more ditch than road, intersects with PR 588, serving rural areas west of the town of Swan River, and is a heavily used traffic corridor linking Saskatchewan and Manitoba. The highway curves on entry into the town of Swan River and terminates at Provincial Trunk Highway 10A, the town's north bypass. The Swan River Valley is a highly productive agriculture area, and PR 275 is used by farmers to move heavy machinery and equipment, as well as transport seed, grain, and fertilizer to many farmers located within reach of the highway. It is also frequented by families, people shopping at business along the route, and school buses to transport rural students into the town of Swan River for school. Due to only having patchwork and minor repairs, the highway has deteriorated and is covered with large potholes, posing a significant threat to vehicles and passengers. The roadway and shoulders of PR 275 are extremely narrow, leaving large ditches that have not been properly cared for, which has caused poor drainage. The town of Swan River and the municipality of Swan River West have inquired with MTI for a drainage solution over the past several years. The ditch is not graded properly and is full of bulrush, willows, and cattails.
Not cattails.
The solution brought forward is to decrease maximum speed limits on the road and to undertake a full rehabilitation of the highway and to reroute the stream through what is now existing farmland under CN rail lines and Provincial Trunk Highway 10A bypass, as well as through several hundred meters of existing slough into the Swan River. Numerous meetings were held with Swan Valley West and the town of Swan River with the provincial government have not moved forward. It was agreed in 2022 the MTI was to complete a hydraulic investigation of the capacity of PR 275 Second Avenue ditch. The municipality has not seen the results of this investigation. We petition the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba as follows: to urge the provincial government to address the much-needed rehabilitation of Provincial Road 275 to ensure public safety. To urge the provincial government to provide the results of the MTI investigation to the town and municipality and provide immediate funding for the repairs of PR 275. And to urge the provincial government to address drainage issues on PR 275 and create permanent solutions so that flooding can be avoided. This petition has been signed by Rick Bobby, Dwight Potts, Laurie Campbell, and many, many other Manitobans.
I now recognize the honourable member for Selkirk.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. I wish to present the following petition to the Legislative Assembly. To the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba. These are the reasons for this petition. Number one, person struggling with mental health as their sole condition may access medical assistance in dying unless Parliament intervenes. Number two, suicidality is often a symptom of mental illness, and suicide is the second leading cause of death for Canadians between the age of 10 and 19. Number three, there have been reports of the unsolicited introduction of medical assistance in dying to non-seeking persons, including Canadian veterans, as a solution for their medical and mental health issues. Number four, legal and medical experts are deeply concerned that permitting Canadians suffering from depression and other mental illnesses to access euthanasia would undermine suicide prevention efforts and risk normalizing suicide as a solution for those suffering from mental illness. Number five, the federal government is bound by the Charter of Rights and Freedoms to advance and protect the life, liberty, and security of its citizens. Number six, Manitobans consider it a priority to ensure that adequate supports are in place for mental health of all Canadians. Number seven, vulnerable Manitobans must be given suicide prevention counseling instead of suicide assistance. Number eight, the federal government should focus on increasing mental health supports to provinces and improve access to these supports instead of offering medical assistance in dying for those with mental illness. We petition the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba as follows. Number one, to urge the provincial government to lobby the federal government to stop the expansion of medical assistance in dying to those for whom mental illness is the sole condition. Number two, to urge the provincial government to lobby the federal government to protect Canadians struggling with mental illness by facilitating treatment, recovery, and medical assistance in living, not death. This petition is signed by Harlan Pershot, Reed Sutherland, Gerald Sawatsky, and many other Manitobans.
The honourable member for Springfield Rashad.
I wish to present the following petition to the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba. These are the reasons for this petition. 1. Beginning March 17th, 2024, persons struggling with mental health as their sole condition may access medical assistance in dying unless Parliament intervenes. 2. Suicidality is often a symptom of mental illness, and suicide is the second leading cause of death for Canadians between the age of 10 and 19. 3. There have been reports of the unsolicited introduction of medical assistance in dying to non-seeking persons, including Canadian veterans, as a solution for their medical and mental health issues. 4. Legal and medical experts are deeply concerned that permitting Canadians suffering from depression and other mental illnesses to access euthanasia would undermine suicide prevention efforts and risk normalizing suicide as a solution for those suffering from mental illness. 5, the federal government is bound by the Charter of Rights and Freedoms to advance and protect the life, liberty, and security of its citizens. 6, Manitobans consider it a priority to ensure that adequate supports are in place for the mental health of all Canadians. 7, vulnerable Manitobans must be given suicide prevention counseling instead of suicide assistance. 8, the federal government should focus on increasing mental health supports to provinces and improve access to these supports instead of offering medical assistance in dying for those with mental illness. We petition the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba as follows. 1, to urge the provincial government to lobby the federal government to stop the expansion of medical assistance in dying to those for whom mental illness is the sole condition. 2, to urge the provincial government to lobby the federal government to protect Canadians struggling with mental illness by facilitating treatment, recovery, and medical assistance in living, not death. This is signed by Leon Tétrault, Agnes Pelletier, Monique Chabot, and many, many other Manitobans.
The honourable member for Red River North.
Honourable Speaker, I wish to present the following petition to the Legislative Assembly. The background of this petition is as follows. Over 25,000 vehicles per day cross the Louise Bridge, which has served as a vital link for vehicular traffic between Northeast Winnipeg and the downtown for the last 113 years. Number 2,
Jim Malloy used to talk about
the current structure will undoubtedly be declared unsafe in a few years as it has deteriorated extensively and is now functionally obsolete and therefore more subject to more frequent, unplanned repairs and cannot be widened to accommodate future traffic capacity. Number 3, as far back as 2008, the City of Winnipeg has studied where the new replacement bridge should be situated. Number 4, after including the bridge replacement in the city's 5-year capital budget forecast in 2009, the new bridge became a short-term construction priority in the city's transportation master plan of 2011. Number 5, city capital and budget plans identified replacement of the Louise Bridge on a site just east of the bridge and expropriated homes on the south side of Nairn Avenue in anticipation of the 2015 start. Number 6, in 2014, the new city administration did not make use of the available federal infrastructure funds. Number 7, the new Louise Bridge Committee began its campaign to demand a new bridge, and its surveys confirmed residents wanted a new bridge beside the current bridge, with the old bridge kept open
for local traffic. Number 8, the city tethered the Louise Bridge replacement issue to its new transportation master plan and Eastern Corridor project. Its recommendations have now identified the location of the new Louise Bridge to be placed just to the west of the current bridge, not to the east as originally proposed. Number 9, the city expropriation process has begun. The $6.35 million street upgrade of Narren Avenue from Watt Street to the 113-year-old bridge is now complete. Number 10, the new city administration has delayed the decision on the Louise Bridge for a minimum of 1 year and possibly up to 10 years, unless the province steps in on behalf of Northeast Winnipeg residents and completes the overdue link. Number 11, the Premier has a duty to direct the provincial government to provide financial assistance to the city so it can complete this long overdue vital link to Northeast Winnipeg and Transcona. We petitioned the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba as follows: to urge the Premier to financially assist the City of Winnipeg on building this 3-lane bridge in each direction to maintain this vital link between Northeast Winnipeg, Transcona, and the downtown. Number 2, to urge the provincial government to recommend that the City of Winnipeg keep the old bridge fully open to traffic while the new bridge is under construction. And number 3, to urge the provincial government to consider the feasibility of keeping the old bridge open for active transportation in the future. This petition is signed by Guy Lagemodier, Darren Orvis, Carol Hainsworth, and many, many Manitobans.
The Honourable Member for Riding Mountain.
Honourable Speaker, I wish to present the following petition to the Legislative Assembly. The background to this petition is as follows. Number 1, Provincial Road 275, known as Ditch Road, intersects with PR 588, serving rural areas west of the town of Swan River, and is a heavily used travel corridor linking Saskatchewan and Manitoba. The highway curves on entry into the town of Swan River and terminates at PTH 10A, the town's north bypass. Number 2, the Swan River Valley is a highly productive agricultural area, and PR 275 is used by farmers to move heavy machinery and equipment, as well as transport seed, grain, and fertilizer to many farmers located within reach of the highway. Number 3, it is also frequented by families, people shopping at businesses along the route, and school buses to transport rural students into the town of Swan River for school. 4, due to only having patchwork and minor repairs, the highway has deteriorated and is covered with large potholes, posing a significant threat to vehicles and passengers. 5, the roadway and shoulders on PR 275 are extremely narrow, leaving large ditches that have not been properly cared for, which has caused poor drainage. The town of Swan River and the municipality of Swan Valley West have inquired with MTI for a drainage solution over the past several years. This ditch is not graded properly and is full of bulrush, willows, and cattails. 6, the solution brought forward is to decrease maximum speed limits on the road and to undertake a full rehabilitation of the highway. and to reroute the stream through what is now existing farmland under CN rail line and the PTH 10A bypass, as well as through several hundred meters of an existing slough into the Swan River. 7, numerous meetings held with Swan Valley West and Town of Swan River with the provincial government have not moved forward. It was agreed in 2022 that MTI was to complete a hydraulic investigation of the capacity of PR 275 2nd Avenue ditch. The municipalities have not seen the results of this investigation. We petition the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba as follows. 1, to urge the provincial government to address the much-needed rehabilitation of Provincial Road 275 to ensure public safety. 2, to urge the provincial government to provide the results of the MTI investigation to the town and municipality and provide immediate funding for the repairs to PR 275. 3, to urge the provincial government to address drainage issues on PR 275 and create permanent solutions so that flooding can be avoided. This petition is signed by Jessica Bergen, Shannon Stadnick, Lauren Stadnick, and many, many Manitobans. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Just before I recognize any other members to read petitions, I would just point out to the member from Red River North that when reading the names on a petition, the accepted practice is to read the top 3 names, not to select different names throughout the list. So it's either the top 3 names or no names. The honourable member for Turtle Mountain.
Honourable Speaker, I just want to give a leave to actually read the petition for the honourable member for Steinbach.
Does the honourable member for Turtle Mountain have leave to read the petition in the name of the honourable member for Steinbach? Yes. The honourable member does not have leave. No other petitions today. Grievances. Orders of the day, government business. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Oh, Miigwech, Honourable Speaker. Can you please call BITSA for resuming second reading debate on BITSA?
It has been announced that we will now resume second reading debate on Bill 37, the Budget Implementation and Tax Statutes Amendment Act 2024. And the debate is standing in the name of the honourable member for Tyndall Park, who has 16 minutes remaining. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Sorry, on House business continued, I apologize.
The Honourable Government House Leader on government business continued. The Honourable Opposition House Leader on a point of order.
That part of our agenda has concluded today, I believe.
I do not believe the Opposition House Leader has a point of order. We hadn't actually started debate on that bill, so I believe that the Government House Leader can continue with what she wanted to say. The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Respectfully, I would like to challenge that decision.
This. No. As per our rules, you cannot challenge the Speaker on a ruling on a point of order. So, order please. Order please. Order. Order. I'm not sure the member heard me because he was busy speaking at the time while I was trying to give a ruling, but he does not have the opportunity to challenge the speaker on a ruling on a point of order. Therefore, we will return to the Government House Leader, the Honourable Government House Leader.
Miigwech, Honourable Speaker, and I apologize for my earlier omission. Can you please call for resumed debate on BITSA? And should BITSA pass second reading, can you please call for second reading debate on Bill 38?
It has been announced that we will resume second reading debate on Bill 37, the Budget Implementation and Tax Statutes Amendment Act 2024. And if we conclude that, then we will resume debate on Bill 38, the Act respecting child and family service, Indigenous jurisdiction, and other amendments. So now we will resume debate on second reading of Bill 37, the Budget Implementation and Tax Statutes Amendment Act 2024. The debate stands in the name of the Honourable Member for Tyndall Park, who has 16 minutes remaining. Is there leave to allow the debate to remain standing in the Honourable Member for Tyndall Park's name? Yes. I hear a no. So with that, then the Honourable Member for Tyndall Park will not be allowed to speak. The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Yeah, I would ask that people reconsider. I think we all know that the member is due soon, and I would ask that we really reconsider if there's leave for the minutes to remain standing in that member.
So to be clear, is the member, the Opposition House Leader, is asking for leave to reverse the earlier decision and allow the debate to remain standing in the member for Tyndall Park's name, who has 16 minutes remaining. Is there leave? Agreed. Leave has been denied. So the floor is open for debate. The Honourable Member for Turtle Mountain.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I'm so glad to be able now to stand up and actually put some words on the record since I wasn't able to do the petition for my colleague from Steinbach. This has been a great opportunity to put it, again, to talk about the BITSA bill, Bill 37, when it comes to the NDP putting everything into one bill and not allowing the whole process when it comes to debates on certain bills, instead of having individual bills. Going through the process of, first reading, second reading, going to committees, and then finally third reading, and going through concurrence and basically royal assent. So the process here is basically they're basically doing a shortcut to put a lot of bills together. And again, this is not what it should be for when it comes to the public, especially when they went door knocking and tried to get the support of many Manitobans who thought that, they basically broke their promises when they come to transparency. And the thing is, when it comes to transparency here, they basically are throwing a whole bunch of bills into one. And again, we as a government back in the PC days, we actually made it more fair when it comes to school property taxes. Now they're going to be lumping this all together here without debate. I think for labor bills, there's a shortcut to put it all into one. And I think they really fooled Manitobans. Manitobans want to be heard. They want to have the opportunity to come to committees to talk about specific bills. And what this NDP government has done, they snuck everything into one BITSA bill. And that's hard for a lot of Manitobans to absorb. Basically to not able to speak and not able to express themselves of what this NDP government's agenda is. We know what the dark days of the NDP Salinger government, and Honourable Speaker, I remember the days when they had the vote tax. We abolished that vote tax, but now they're going to be putting that vote tax back in. I believe that if you're going to believe in elections, I believe that you should raise your money and be able to actually support yourself. And the vote tax, again, why should taxpayers have to pay for this this type of tax that is, it's not fair for Manitobans, I believe, in this case, Honourable Speaker. And then when it comes to the fuel tax, they're also being able to end that tax anytime they want now, because the fact is, again, they promised Manitobans about the fuel tax. It's kind of ironic that they have this fuel tax holiday, but they raise it on the other end when it comes to carbon tax. They don't fight for Manitobans when it comes to the carbon tax. And then again, they throw it all into the bits of bills so they have a better chance to go and be able to eliminate that fuel tax or put that tax back on, that 14 cents. So these are the really concerns that Manitobans have when it comes to this BITSA bill. And like I said, I've been the speaker, I was interim speaker back in the day, and I was the deputy speaker. I was also chair of the committees, and a lot of times when we had these committee meetings, we had opportunities with some bills. We had more committee members to speak on that committee. We had a lot of presenters, and some nights I remember there was one bill that we had probably 2 weeks of presenters, and the rideshare program. And so this gives a chance for industries, special interest groups, to come in and talk about how it's going to impact their lives as Manitoba taxpayers, residents of Manitoba, and the process of having certain bills, individual bills, being able to focus on that allows presenters to come into these committee rooms and be able to present. We've learned a lot of things about these committee rooms and over the years, and a lot of people had expressed their concerns. Sometimes they also brought in good information when it came to what the bill was all about. But again, with this BITSA bill, again, this doesn't give an opportunity for presenters to come in to debate on specific parts of this bill, that the omnibus bill that they are full into putting all into one bill, which is, again, it's really trying to fool Manitobans and putting it all into one. They're also going to water down the Public Utility Board. And we know that, again, I like giving history lessons. I love history. And I love when it comes to the histories of the Selinger government. I remember first coming into this legislature, and I remember what they are now watering down the Public Utilities Board so they have more controls. What they did was they basically doubled the debt for Manitoba Hydro. They increased rates.
Order, please. I would ask the member to keep his comments relevant to the bill we're debating today. Thank you. The honourable member for Turtle Mountain.
Honourable Speaker, again, this is the importance of this BITSA bill. It is the public utility watering down and the impact of what the future of Manitoba Hydro is. So I was trying to give a history lesson of how they almost doubled the debt again in Manitoba Hydro. So this BITSA bill, again, it's allowing them to put all this information into one bill, and it's really concerning. It's not allowing Manitobans to come and to present at bill committees. And so the fact is, this is where it's really concerning right now. And again, they're also, this whole thing when it comes to property taxes too. They are subsidizing themselves as when it comes to raising taxes on school, property taxes on school education taxes. And we were basically trying to eliminate that to make more of a fair when it comes to how we finance education, Honourable Speaker. And it's important that Manitobans do have a say when it comes to individual bills. And again, they've put all this into the BITSA bill and ramming it through the omnibus bill full and untested measures. They are feathering their own nests with future subsidies to the NDP as Manitoba expenses. They are removing transparency and accountability of Manitoba Hydro and watering down powers of the public utility. Hydro will no longer be accountable to Manitobans for Hydro's debt, deficits, and borrowing plans. This will will lead to higher hydro rates, I believe, Honorable Speaker. And this is why it's so important that Manitobans have an opportunity to really see what the NDP is focusing on here. They're really wanting to make sure that that they're ramming through all this in one BITSA bill. And the concerns are too that they promised Manitobans $3 billion worth of promises, and they've already spent a lot of their money. And we gave them Honorable Speaker, we gave them a surplus from last fiscal year, and now this year they're blaming some of that on us. They've already spent that money. So,
order. I would call the government bench to order, please. Order. The member from Riding Mountain will come to order as well. The honourable member for Turtle Mountain.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And like I said, we did give them a surplus in 2022-2023 fiscal year, and now they're basically they made a lot of promises during the election, and now they're spending $2 billion more in the last fiscal year. So they have to prove it so this is what they were spending their money on. So we gave them a surplus on the last fiscal year. We also had a surplus in 2020. And Honourable Speaker, when it came to the Salinger years, I don't think they had even close to even balancing their budgets. And so when it comes to, I always say, Honourable Speaker, when it comes to history doesn't repeat itself, but does rhyme when it comes to politics. And it also rhymes when it comes to the NDP, Honourable Speaker. They've actually overspent many years during the Salinger government. And, my mother-in-law used to always say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And I really feel that they tell Manitobans that they have good intentions. Meanwhile, we know that when it comes to the old NDP, that will all come through, Honourable Speaker. And when it comes to spending, setting all this up to, we used to nickname the spending NDP. And it really matched their how they've spent back in the past, Honourable Speaker. And when we came into government, we inherited $1 billion deficit. And the fact is, within 4 years, we've actually balanced our budget in 2020. Unfortunately, we had a COVID-19 came, and basically it impacted Manitoba. A pandemic, I can't imagine how the economy would have been, or how our finances would have been if there was an NDP government at that time. And again, we listened to Manitobans, and we made sure that, especially when it comes to businesses, they really wanted to make sure that when it came to with property taxes, that everybody had their fair share. And basically, financing education should be no different than financing healthcare. Why should farmers who actually have huge amounts of land having to pay a huge amount of property taxes? This was a way to really make it more fair to finance education, Honourable Speaker. I have farmers who actually pay so much property taxes that they can actually send their kids to private schools in Europe for what they pay in property taxes. Yep. It is, it's true. When you have tens of thousands of, like when you have 10,000 acres, there's, Honourable Speaker, I guess it struck a nerve here.
Order, please. The government bench will calm themselves and come to order. The honourable member for Turtle Mountain.
Well, I guess the government bench, I guess they don't like to hear the truth out there. So when it comes to finances, well, you know what? Honourable Speaker, you know what? We basically, again, balanced the budget twice in our 7 years. But we also went through a pandemic, Honourable Speaker, and this is where this BITSA bill is really concerning right now. This is going to allow them to spend frivolously and making sure that their friends are protected, are going to be benefiting from higher wages when it comes to unionized jobs. Again, there's only 13% of Manitobans who are in a union. Their bills that they're going to shove into the labor bills, into this BITSA bill, it's very concerning. I have good connections with the business community, and they're really concerned about the way that in the budget of this past year, join a union and become a middle class. That is very concerning to our business community. And you know what? That really struck a nerve when it comes to the member for St. John's, when I'm actually talking on behalf of businesses in Manitoba. And the thing is, Honorable Speaker, we had opportunity right now. I drive around, and when it comes to the tax system here, Honorable Speaker, when this BITSA bill, you know, right now they're making sure that they throw in the labor bills that are part of this, where the you know, it doesn't have an opportunity for an employee not have a choice when it comes to joining a union or not. That is really concerning to a lot of employers. That's concerning to a lot of employees out there. I come from the private sector. I come from a sector that actually looked after employees. I had retention in my business, that I had made sure that people who were with me almost the whole time I was in business. And we had very low turnover rate, but because we looked after them. And this is why I believe that by throwing this in here, it really makes it concerning to a lot of businesses, Honorable Speaker, when this BITSA bill is throwing in a bunch of labor laws that's really concerning to our business community, Honorable Speaker. And again, the subsidy for their own party. I remember when we came in, the vote tax. It was millions of dollars that a political party would receive because the taxpayer, there would be such an amount of debt tax, amount of votes that are out there. And that's very concerning when it comes to why should taxpayer have to pay that? We believe that you raise the money in your own party, and it was important. You know, I was wondering, Honorable Speaker, when the member from St. John is asking if who's in the House or who's not. I think that's against rules here, Honorable Speaker. And again, Honorable Speaker.
Order, please. I would ask the front bench of the government to please come to order. The honourable member for Turtle Mountain.
Well, thanks, you, Honourable Speaker. And again, you know, when it comes to raising taxes on property, taxes on properties, when it comes to raising school taxes, again, this is concerning when it comes to this BITSA bill, Honourable Speaker. Again, when it comes to rural Manitoba, we pay so much, especially our farmers, our businesses. We pay a lot of money into educational taxes. And the fact is, nowadays, I remember growing up in a farm, we had 4 kids on per family. Nowadays, even big farmers, they only have 1.5 kids now still, as the average Canadian family has that many kids born in per family. And when it comes to the amount of taxes that a farmer will pay in rural Manitoba is very concerning for them. You know, right now, the weather is changing all the time. It's not always predictable of what kind of weather we're going to have. We have drought. We have excess amount of rain. We've had it all, and especially in these last 5 years. We saw farmers struggling to making sure that they get their crops off. We're lucky we had a good fall this year because we had a late spring, spring that took a while to harvest, to seed fields, and thank God we didn't have an early frost because the farmers, I think, are now going to have a very good crop this year. But the fact is, they pay a lot of money when it comes to property taxes. And in this BITSA bill, it does alter the amount of, the reduction of the amount of taxes that a farmer is going to pay now. The concern that we have also too with this BITSA bill and taking not allowing the education tax credits to be rebated, I'm concerned about doctors. I come from rural Manitoba. To attract a doctor, especially in a small town like Melita or Deloraine, we have to be competitive. In this BITSA bill, it's now allowing us to be competitive. We're going to be allowing the NDP to raise taxes and not making it competitive for doctors to actually have less taxes to pay here. When it comes to income tax, reducing the personal exemptions of anybody that makes over $200,000, that's your doctors in this province, Honourable Speaker. And this BITSA bill is not transparent. It doesn't allow the presenters who are concerned about this bill, who's going to be affected on a daily basis, to come and present. And I think it's very important that that Manitobans have an opportunity to come to committee meetings to make sure that their voices are heard. You know, when the NDP were in opposition, they made sure that presenters came on bills that they were concerned about that we were passing. And now they don't, in this case, people who have concerns about their certain bills, especially labor bills, we do not have employers that have the opportunity to express their concerns of where the direction that this NDP is taking us. And when it came to the budget, saying that join a union and be part of the middle class, that was concerning to a lot of business people that were out there, and investment that comes to this province, Honourable Speaker, because there should be a voice when it comes to allowing the industries out there, the business community, to come to the community meetings to talk about some of these labor issues that are being rammed into this BITSA bill. And that is very concerning to the people that I talk to, the people that actually employ a lot of people in this province, who participate in the tax revenues that this province gets. If this is the case, it's so easy for a company to pick up and go somewhere where there's more competitiveness when it comes to the tax treatments. We have to compete with Saskatchewan. We got to compete with Saskatchewan when it comes to our tax bases, when it comes to attracting doctors, attracting investment. And that's really concerning. And the fact is, right now, when it comes to property taxes in this BITSA bill, they are eligible to reduce the amount of taxes, rebates that we actually accomplished, allowing individuals, residents, to get 50% back on the rebates of the educational taxes. And I feel it's very concerning for residential individuals that actually have rental properties, and that's going to increase their rates. They will have no other choice to pass it on to the consumer. And at the end of the day, that is where we're more concerned about, is also the people who have less fortunate. Like the member for Gary, who said in his bid question that the concern of this tax holiday for gas for 14 cents, it really doesn't really affect people who don't have a vehicle. They are not the ones that benefit. And they're so into this carbon, trying to have this carbon tax. So by reducing the taxes of PST, it's sort of defending what they believe in when it comes to the carbon tax. So it's like a washout when it comes to not standing up for Canadians and Manitobans when it comes to the Trudeau carbon tax. That's really concerning right now, is that the fact is any day now, when they feel that they're going to be more of a debt as they move on, the fact is they can reduce, in this BITSA bill, they can put back on that tax, that 14 cents per liter on gasoline at any time. And that's going to be one of the highest tax increases in Manitoba history when it comes to them putting it back on. And that's a concern that a lot of Manitobans have right now. And I think right now for the fortunate, when we did our the tax rates for individuals, for people who are making a low income, we put more and more people off the tax rate, because the fact is we increased the personal exemption of all individuals in the province. We also have increased our tax brackets. So individuals who were making lower incomes were totally off of having to pay taxes on the tax roll. And that was a big opportunity for people who had low incomes to keep more money on the table, Honourable Speaker. And with this other tax, this tax holiday for gasoline, it's not really impacting the benefit of a lot of poor people who don't have a vehicle. Or if they do, they have more efficient vehicle, which they don't drive very far. They may live in their own community. And really, it's not really saving them a lot of money. What we did, Honourable Speaker, we basically made sure that they had more money in their pockets. And my concern right now with this BITSA bill, the way that the NDP is going to increase taxes at any time, water down Manitoba Hydro, the PUB, when it comes to the rate increases on Manitoba Hydro, they'll have more control and trying to raise rates on hydro. They're going to put hydro into more of a deficit like they did before, and losing money, and of course they doubled the debt. Not only did they double the debt for Manitoba Hydro in the Selinger days, but they also doubled the debt of Manitoba debt, Honourable Speaker. And the fact is, I feel that with where they're going on this direction, on this BITSA bill, Honourable Speaker, this is what their intent is fulfilling all their promises during the last election and putting this bill into place so that they can actually start raising taxes and increasing this unfair playing field when it comes to our taxation system with other provinces, attracting investment, attracting employees. You know, back in the days of the NDP government, of Selinger government, we had a mass exodus of young people moving to other provinces. We had immigrants coming into this province, Honourable Speaker, and the concern that they had when just before we formed government was they were concerned that their children who were growing up in this area had to find jobs and better opportunity in other provinces like Saskatchewan and Alberta. And like I said, when I was actually in, this BITSA bill can also be an opportunity to start the opportunity to raise taxes in the PST. When Selinger government went knocking on the doors of Manitobans for their vote in 2011, they promised that they would not raise the PST. And they did right after the election, Honourable Speaker. And that really impacted, especially border towns that I have to represent in the U.S. border and also on Saskatchewan border, especially the town of Virden. When I used to represent Virden back in the day, we had people going to Saskatchewan for services, and we saw a growth, like I said before in another presentation, how Saskatchewan grew faster than Manitoba. This is the BITSA bill, is what's going to be concerning to a lot of business owners, especially in my western region. They're concerned about the fact is that they could move elsewhere, and the concern that the amount of taxes, the hidden policies of the labor bills going into this bill, it's very concerning to the people in the southwestern region of Manitoba here. We do have an oil patch that we have that provides a lot of jobs, a lot of revenue for this province. And my concern right now is if there's no transparency in this BITSA bill, this is what's going to happen, is that the taxes are going to be increased, more taxes coming from our neck of the woods, and less investment, especially when it comes to infrastructure that we saw in the Selinger government. And the reason why I'm here today is because the fact is we did not get our fair share in the western region. And I've always been a voice for my constituency. And for people that have to deal with this BITSA bill here, I'm here for my constituents. And I want to make sure that I will fight for them any possible time I get here to make sure that when it comes to labor, we have a lot, like I had an opportunity to travel the whole summer in Turtle Mountain, meeting up with manufacturers in my constituency and listen to them. And the concerns was always about the labor laws and making sure that they're competitive when it comes to doing business in Manitoba. I got a company called Fiber. They do manufacturing for farm equipment, for machinery, for dairy farms. They send their products all over the world, Honourable Speaker. And the fact is, when it comes to labor, when it comes to be competitive, they do have business actually in the Des Moines, Iowa area, and they're wanting to bring that all into one area. And I'm really concerned that with the disadvantages of this BITSA bill, they may think twice of bringing those jobs to this province. And that's why it's so important that I'm in this legislature to make sure that the labor laws are going to be allowed the manufacturers, the business community to thrive and not to be restricted and not feel that they have a disadvantage. And I do not want them to relocate. It's important because the fact is, a town like Crystal City, which fiber is actually located at, I'm really concerned that if there's a disadvantage of labor when it comes to property taxes, rebates on their equipment, on their properties, on their on their building, they may look at going south of the border. We have an opportunity to build that economy in that southwest corner, but we want to make sure that things don't get slid into bills like this that would make it disadvantage for a company like Fiber to expand, to grow. And one of the things that they have, I was just at the Citizenship Road ceremonies in the Peace Gardens at the Turtle Mountains, and one of the employees, who was actually, her family was honored at getting their citizenship ceremony. She worked at Fiber. So it was nice to catch up with her after the ceremony on July 1st to talk about the opportunities that she had in the community of Crystal City, working for the good company that needs to be competitive, to say that because again, they're competing with worldwide when it comes to competition out there. And they have a good product, they have a good workforce. They just want to make sure that they look after their workforce, they know the importance, but as long as it doesn't cause some of these problems with the labor component in the BITSA bill, does not allow them to have a voice when it comes to coming to committee meetings. If something's going to impact their company, they want to know that they can come to this legislature to voice their concerns when it comes to some labor bills that are going forward here, Honorable Speaker. And again, I'm their voice. I'm here to represent that area. There's a lot of manufacturers in the area. One of the other bigger manufacturers is the feed mill that High Life. I know the High Life plant is in Neepawa, but it employs a lot of people in their plant in Killarney and the hogs operations that they have here. And I'm also concerned about too the environments when it comes to throwing environmental bills in there. I remember the NDP, the Legislature government, basically put a moratorium on the hog industry. It really impacted High Life. Killarney would not be the size they were if we didn't take that moratorium off, because I believe that that industry, the hog industry, is so well regulated, especially when it comes to spreading of waste into injecting it into the soil for natural fertilizer. So, Honourable Speaker, I just had my great opportunity to speak for the last half hour, and thank you very much.
The honourable member for Riding Mountain.
Well, thank you, Honourable Speaker. It's certainly my pleasure to get up today and put a few words on the record on the Budget Implementation and Tax Statutes Amendment Act. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about a bill that's embedded into this act, the Environment Amendment Act. But first I want to read something to you. Here's a quote I want to read. It says, "Dumping them into BITSA bills where the public doesn't have a say on them and where MLAs are forced to vote on the myriad of legislative changes in a single piece of legislation is wrong. That's not how laws should be made. The public deserves better and should have input." Now, who said that? Any guesses? Your friend Tom Broadbeck from the Winnipeg Free Press said that. So Tom gets where it's at here, that bills are in BITSA that shouldn't be in BITSA, and the Environmental Amendment Act is one of those bills, Honourable Speaker. This bill obviously came about as a direct result of the 23 and 24 Fort Garry Bridge sewage spills. The first pipe burst on November 30th, 2023, and the second on February 7th, 2024. The Minister of Environment and Climate Change announced these legislative changes March 6th by press release. Several months later, and after 230 million litres of raw sewage was spewed into the Red River and Lake Winnipeg watershed. The Minister also announced $10 million in funding towards the unknown cost of repairs and a $96 million project the City of Winnipeg has planned to build a backup pipe beginning in 2026. However, the minister didn't speak out publicly on this bill for 2 weeks after the February incident, and the much larger of the two spills made national news. Now, Honourable Speaker, that's not why Manitoban wants to be on the national news. Total disgrace that this had to happen. So the minister's silence and delays were condemned by Treaty 1 nations around Lake Winnipeg, who said they were never notified, even though they were engaged in conversations with the minister about other matters while this environmental catastrophe was unfolding. In quotation, she seemed unaware, is what Treaty 1 Nations chairperson Gordon Bluesky, the chief of Broken Head Ojibwe Nation, said on windspeaker.com. I quote, "What's their notification process? Because I never received anything, and I'm potentially the most impacted community, seeing that the water literally goes by my First Nation and in my backyard. So again, I don't know why there is no process established, but it's a bit shocking," said Bluesky. So subsequently, 8 First Nations are now suing this provincial NDP government for $4.8 billion for breaches of their charter rights and punitive damages resulting from these spills. To make matters more scandalous, a City of Winnipeg councillor has even called on the province to fine the city $1 billion. On March 14th, the NDP member for Riel told this House during a debate on these very issues that he's proud of this kind of response by his NDP government. We believe Manitobans strongly disagree and have plenty to say about the minister's inaction in these changes, or lack thereof, being rammed through in this omnibus bill. The amendments to the Environmental Act aren't even aligned with the minister's public comments on the record about this topic. On March 6th, the day she announced these amendments by press release, the minister told the Winnipeg Free Press that, and I quote, "There is no requirement in the Environment Act for licensed authorities to tell affected communities there has been a severe incident." The minister said, "We've certainly heard these concerns from Manitobans and from municipalities and First Nations downstream." Surely the minister doesn't need legislation to give Treaty 1 nations the courtesy of a phone call, or to municipalities throughout the region that were affected. And, Honourable Speaker, to make things worse, there are no new provisions in these legislative amendments requiring that affected communities be notified of severe incidents upstream of their communities. So, Honourable Speaker, I ask, this all came out very publicly in March. There was plenty of time to put a separate bill in place in the spring, have it pass through the legislature by June. But no, let's wait and put it into BITSA. Not sure why. That's what we're asking today. Although there are a few changes being made to the Environment Act, they are really not consequential and are a direct result of the Fort Garry Bridge sewage spill. The City of Winnipeg, the Association of Manitoba Municipalities, industry, business, farmers, and other stakeholders want to have input on any new powers being doled out under the Environment Act, and to comment on what penalties might be suggested by the minister. These people, these organizations, should be able to appear and present at public committees. The minister has a statutory responsibility for convening public hearings under the Environment Act. So she should not refuse this call, and she should bring a bill to committee, not hide this bill in an omnibus bill like BITSA. It should be noted, Honourable Speaker, that the last time there was a significant sewage spill into the Red River of this magnitude was in 2002. A failure at the North End treatment plant spilled 427 million litres of untreated sewage into the river. This also happened under an NDP government. And there was a Clean Environment Commission hearing after much NDP hand-wringing and delays. When the Clean Environment Commission was finally allowed to do its job, The NDP ignored their warnings and failed to take action to upgrade the North End treatment plant. The NDP ignored the CEC in 2002, and they are ignoring the CEC today. Now, the Minister of Environment and Climate Change says, and I quote, "Water is life," but this bill does nothing to protect water. In fact, the minister hasn't allocated a single dollar more to environmental stewardship in Budget 2024. She is spending less on water stewardship initiatives and less on the Clean Environment Commission. This is to say nothing of her colleague, the NDP Infrastructure Minister, who slashed the capital budget for water infrastructure by $105 million in Budget 2024. Meanwhile, another 21 million litres of sewage was spilled from the Fort Garry Bridge after a heavy day of rain in recent weeks. Manitobans have a lot of unanswered questions about this bill, this NDP government's response, and this legislation. That's why this minister needs to withdraw this bill out of BITSA, put it forward as a regular bill, allow it to go to public committee. This minister needs to stop neglecting her duties to protect the environment and take the steps today to allow the public to comment on any changes she intends to make. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
The honourable member for Portage La Prairie.
Honourable Speaker, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak on this BITSA bill. It's my first opportunity to speak on a bill such as this. So today I rise to speak on Bill 37, a bill that at its core holds far-reaching consequences for the financial future of this province. On the surface, Bill 37 may seem like just another budget implementation tool, a mechanism to solidify the government's fiscal strategy, but upon closer examination, it raises serious concerns that I've heard from my constituents about the impact on our economy, public services, and the well-being of everyday Manitobans. My argument is simple. Bill 37 is not in the best interest of Manitobans. The provisions of this legislation favor short-term fiscal appearances at the expense of long-term prosperity. Sustainable public services and financial stability of our most vulnerable citizens. And again, I spoke the other day when we talk about vulnerable citizens. When I look at things like crime, and I look in my own community of Portage La Prairie, when a pizza driver was robbed, not of his money, but of his pizza, in a country like this, in a province like this, people should not be starving out there. I will outline several reasons why this bill is problematic, how it could harm Manitoba's economic health, and why it reflects a vision of governance that prioritizes tax cuts and reduced spending over investments in our community, and most importantly, our people. Let's take some time to delve into the reasons why this bill is not a good idea for Manitobans and why we need to be cautious on the implementation. One of the central features of Bill 37 is the reduction in government revenues through tax cuts. While tax relief can sometimes be beneficial, it is often very short term. This leaves us with a critical question. Where will the lost revenue be made up? In practice, significant tax cuts often force governments to slash public services to balance the books. Manitoba's economy and infrastructure is still recovering from the impacts of the pandemic, and the pressures being felt across Canada are further straining our household budgets. And we don't need to look any further on that to see the damage and the impact that the federal carbon tax is having right now. Now is not the time to reduce the very revenue that funds essential services like healthcare, like education, and like social programs. I've talked many times, Honorable Speaker, about the project that we're doing in Portage-la Prairie, the new healthcare facility that is one of the largest infrastructure projects in Canada. There's been a number of questions about how are we going to service this hospital? Who are the people that are going to work there? Well, I'll tell you what, it's going to be Manitobans that want to work there. It's going to be Manitobans that want to come back to Portage-la Prairie. It's Manitobans that are wanting to work in new facilities like this hospital. But we also must provide the tools for our doctors, and our doctors have spoken in April of this year when they said that we would be doing a disservice to our community if we were not putting an MRI in. So again, let's not let this bill cut out special services like that, where we can actually help reduce the cost on health care by being able to detect things like cancers when they're the size of a pea at a stage 1 instead of a stage 4. When we're having to look after people, they're going to have to go through some very invasive cancer treatments. They're going to spend lots of time in hospital. Why would we want to do that? Our province's most vulnerable residents, our low-income families, our seniors, and our people with disabilities are the ones who will feel the sharpest impact of these cuts. Just like the gentleman I spoke about today from Sandy Bay First Nation that has an MRI appointment at 7 o'clock in the morning, but he doesn't have a driver's license or a vehicle to get there. Is he supposed to miss his appointment? Or how is he going to get there? How is he going to afford that appointment? Well, Bill 37 may seem like a gift to taxpayers on paper. It's important to recognize that reduced revenue leads to weaker public services, which are critical lifelines for many, many Manitobans. We must ask ourselves, is this really the time to forego essential revenues when our communities are in such dire need? I'm so glad I have the opportunity to be able to speak on behalf of all Manitobans, because I think that it's important that we put politics aside and look at the people and look how they will be affected by things like this BITSA bill. And again, it's going to be those people that are most in need. Excuse me, Honorable Speaker. We think about the people, again, when we think about examples and how those people, I think about the people in the north when I think about this BITSA bill, and think about how do they get proper health care? How do they get to the health care facilities? How do they even do that? Well, I know of an infrastructure project that's being built in Portage-la Prairie that's only 5 kilometers away from a runway, so that's one way that we could look at it. Again, I can't state this enough. Is this really the time to forego essential revenue when our communities are so much in need? Number 2, underfunding of the public services, a recipe, an absolute recipe for disaster. The reduction in revenue streams will inevitably will lead to scaling back of public services, which are already under immense strain. We've heard of issues that we're dealing with right now when it comes to the issues with needles. You know, it's not that many years ago, and again, when I think about, again, my own community and being part of the Bear Clan Patrol in Portage la Prairie, I never, ever, for once in my life, ever thought that I would find a needle in my old neighborhood where I grew up in Portage la Prairie. And wow, did I get a wake-up call. This is not the time when we shouldn't be helping out some of these most vulnerable people. But we also need to help our police officers out there as well, too. And we can't continue for them to be having to react to a picture of an Amazon driver, or of a mail carrier, or of a person that's delivering something, because people are so scared to be out of their homes, and it's for that reason that underfunding public services is a real recipe for disaster. Manitoba's healthcare system has been grappling with chronic underfunding for years, and we all know that the COVID pandemic exposed serious weaknesses in our healthcare infrastructure. Our hospitals, long-term care homes, mental health services are still working to recover from these challenges. What happens when funding is further reduced because of these tax cuts? Again, I'd like to give I'd like to give an example of the Lions Prairie Manor in Portage la Prairie, where my mom spent her final days. I had a call this year from a family member of a person that's in the Lions Prairie Manor that the air conditioning was broke. And the comment that come back to them was maybe we could put a cold cloth around their neck, or maybe we could move them to another part of the facility. That's not, our seniors have given so much to our country and our province. Now is not the time to be looking at funding cuts for things like personal care homes. I want to take this chance to thank the previous PC government for doing work with the health care that they did. We're starting that new hospital in Neepawa, with the addition that's going on in Boundary Trails. And again, the CT scanner that the member from Swan River started and worked on for 12 years, I think it was. A man that never gives up. Again, we have to keep doing that. To the massive hospital in the Portage Health region. And again, to think about that, we can't make cuts here. It's so important that we have everybody involved in some of these. I'm sorry, I thought that was you, Honorable Speaker. Was that you speaking to me?
It's all you, Jeff.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The ghost attorney general.
The one thing, again, when we look at these healthcare facilities, there was so much time put into the local hospital in Portage la Prairie. There was so much forethought being put into there when it come to Indigenous input into that as well, too. And again, it's going to... Well, we are I want to thank the health minister for bringing that up, because again, I was accused of circling places on a map of where the MRI was supposed to go, but on actually the picture of that, it showed for future diagnostic and lab. I will table it tomorrow if you like.
Yeah, exactly.
Our hospitals, long-term care homes, and mental health services are still working to recover from these challenges. I would like to again, because the health minister keeps trying to speak me down here again, I would like to, in front of all the people listening here, please come and join us on October 22nd so you can talk about the things that supposedly I have misled the public upon. I wait to hear that. Please come out and join us. The provincial government has indicated that Bill 37 will be followed by reductions in government spending.
Got the front bench excited.
And I ask,
It is. They're excited about coming.
which services will be cut? Where are they? Where will they be cut? When will they be cut?
Finance is going to bring his check.
Will it be health care? It seems so because there's a gift on the table for $5 million that this government doesn't want to accept today. And that's not misleading.
Exactly.
The provincial government has indicated that Bill 37 will be followed by reductions in government spending, and I ask, which services are going to be cut? Is there more than 24,000 people that'll be waiting for an MRI after this BITSA bill passes? Will it be health care, education, or social services?
All of the above.
None of these areas can afford further cuts without significantly impacting the quality of life for Manitobans.
Especially Crown lands.
As we excuse me, as we see the increasing wait times in hospitals, teacher shortages in school, and inadequate mental health resources, cutting more from these critical areas will not serve our province well. Moreover, underfunding education is a direct hit to our future. When I look at the amount of kids, and both of my daughters...
Why did he look at me when he said that?
Because you're the... my apologies.
You're the kid in the block here.
Sorry,
Moreover, and again, I want to state that both of my daughters are involved in the education field. And I don't want to mislead anybody. One is a social worker and one is a teacher. And the thing that I hear all the time are there is not enough room for these kids to learn. There's no place for them to have their lunches even, because they're in the hallways. And this is in a small community in Manitoba. When we see the impact of what's going on with the education system in the city, it is unfathomable. Moreover, underfunding education is a direct hit to our future. When we cut back on education, we are undermining the prospects of the next generation. Are the next generation, under this BITSA bill, going to have the proper education so that they can be the leaders in our country? Or are they going to be left like the people that are sitting in the places like the Lions Prairie Manor to put a cold cloth around their neck? We need to make sure that we're looking after the youth that's coming up behind us. This in turn can lead to a long-term negative consequences for Manitoba's economy, as an uneducated or undereducated workforce is less competitive in the globalized world. Shift burdens onto the municipalities. Bill 37 contains provisions that could offload financial responsibilities onto municipalities. It is important that municipalities should have a say in what goes into this BITSA bill instead of it being rammed down their throat. I had the opportunity to be on city council, and again, it's a tough road, and they need to know what the province is going to be giving them or not giving them so they can prepare. There is only one taxpayer in this province, in this country, and it is us. Bill 37, we must recognize that municipalities are already operating under tight tight fiscal constraints, if the provincial government cuts funding or reduces transfers to municipalities, cities and towns across Manitoba, Manitoba will be forced to raise property taxes or cut local services, such as
Order, please. I realize it's getting a little late in the day, but I would ask the government bench to please exercise some restraint. The Honourable Member for Portage-La Prairie.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I appreciate the government bench listening. That's what we wanted. We wanted under this, while we're speaking today, to be heard. Thank you so much. I appreciate for you hearing me today on this BITSA bill. It's important that you hear that.
I can pull off those glasses. Come on now. Come on.
Manitobans will be forced to either raise property taxes or cut local services, such as infrastructure maintenance. Please say no. They cannot cut infrastructure anymore. It cannot be cut. Public transit and recreational programs. We know that municipalities are the front line of service delivery for Manitobans. When provincial support is reduced, it is local governments that must pick up the slack. We could see a future where roads go unrepaired, community centers close down. I can't imagine that when I think of our own Stride Place in Portage-La Prairie, the crown jewel of recreation in Manitoba. Yep. The amount that it feeds into the economy. Please tell me you're not going to close down recreation facilities. Please tell me that.
Oh, they will.
For rural communities, this could be even more damaging often as they have smaller tax bases to rely on.
They've only begun with the scissors.
Number 4, the impact on the most vulnerable. As mentioned earlier, Bill 37 includes provisions that will disproportionately impact low and middle income Manitobans. I don't think we have to look any further than the grocery store. Has anybody been to the grocery store lately and tried to buy a pork chop? I can't even afford a pork chop anymore. I used to be able to buy a steak once in a while. Not even a pork chop I can afford anymore. And part of that is because this government wants to continue to support the carbon tax and what that's costing us. Well, there are some tax breaks built into the bill. I'm okay. These benefits.
Order, please. I would ask the opposition bench to come to order, particularly when one of your own members is trying to speak. The Honourable Member for Portage-La Prairie.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Well, there are some tax breaks built into this bill. These benefits are not evenly distributed, not even a little bit.
Not at all.
Consider the individuals and families who are already struggling to make ends meet. That's the people that don't benefit one thin dime from the cut in the gas tax. Not one thin dime are the people that have to walk to get their groceries. The people that have to be on a bicycle to get their groceries. How does that affect them in one wee bit? The rising cost of living, driven by inflation, has put pressure like we have never seen on household budgets. Yep. Now imagine that these families also face cuts to childcare services. That's right. Social assistance programs, affordable housing initiatives because of reduced government revenue. Bill 37 focus on tax cuts And fiscal restraint means that people who need the most support will likely receive the least. Instead of creating a more equitable Manitoba, Bill 37 may widen the gap between rich and poor, leaving many people further behind. Do we want to leave anybody further behind today?
Not at all.
Do you want to think about that offer before you make it? It might be open.
Number 5, short-term gains for long-term pain. No, sorry, short-term gains, long-term consequences. The tax reductions proposed in Bill 37 may give the impression of immediate relief, but the long-term consequences will be felt and felt and felt for years to come. It could be detrimental to Manitoba's fiscal health. When a government reduces its revenue base, it's limited its abilities to respond to future economic challenges and opportunities. Did anybody on that side think about that? What is this going to do to the future of Manitoba? I ask you that. What happens? I understand that. We understand. Thank you for the minister for saying that he's ready to raise taxes. What happens when we face another economic downturn? Oh, sorry, did we think about that? Doesn't look like it. Public health crisis. What if we have another COVID event or a natural disaster, unfortunately, like we're seeing in Florida right now, of a pressure that we will never hopefully see again?
Category 5.
With a reduced tax base, the government will have fewer resources. Excuse me, Honorable Speaker.
Slow down. You got lots of time.
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to have a drink.
Order, please. I've repeatedly asked members to exercise some restraint in their exuberant heckling, and I would again ask for that consideration. The Honourable Member for Portage La Prairie.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. With a reduced tax base, the government will have fewer resources available to address unforeseen crises. Furthermore, we know that tax cuts often lead to increased borrowing to cover budget shortfalls. Manitoba already carries significant debt, and further borrowing could only increase our debt servicing costs. Bill 37 is a short-term fix for a much more complex problem. Rather than investing in sustainable solutions that will strengthen our economy and our communities over long term, this bill prioritizes significant risks down the road. The potential impact on public sector workers. One area that often suffers under austerity measures is public sector employment. Bill 37's provision to cut government spending could mean job losses, wage freezes, or reduced benefits. Public sector workers have already made significant sacrifices through the pandemic, working on the front lines to keep us safe and provide vital services. Cutting funding now would not only be a disservice to these dedicated individuals, but it could also undermine the quality of services that Manitobans receive. When we reduce the number of nurses in our hospitals or teachers in our classroom, we all suffer consequences. Bill 37, undermining the hard work of the public sector. Honorable members, Bill 37 presents itself as a fiscal tool to ease the burden on taxpayers. But in fact, it's a ticking time. But in fact, are you ready for this ticking time bomb that is coming your way and on the backs of Manitobans? I hope you're ready to clap at that time. The tax cuts may provide short-term relief, but the long-term consequences will be felt for years and years to come. This legislation reflects a flawed vision of governance that prioritizes cutting tax over investing in our communities, our infrastructure, and our people. We see that in the Louise Bridge. We should be focusing on building Manitoba, where everyone has access to high-quality services, where every child has an opportunity to succeed in school, not to operate in a hallway, not to operate in a school where the roofs is in Brandon, where 10 roofs are needing new shingles. We're not even looking at that. That is nowhere part of this. So where do we go? Where is the results that we're looking for in order to be looking at how we can have the next generation move forward for us? Bill 37 is not the path forward for Manitoba. We can and must. We must do better for the people of Manitoba. When I come to sit in this chamber, it was to look at all constituents, all of their issues. It does not matter whether it's an NDP member, a Liberal member, a Red member, an Orange member, a Conservative member. It's to make sure we look at this whole province. Bill 37 is not the path forward, and we can and must do better for the people of this province. I urge my colleagues to reconsider the harmful provisions of this bill and to reject a short-sighted approach that will cost Manitobans dearly in the long run. Honourable Speaker, I also want to apologize for me speaking out loudly yesterday, and I hope that the members opposite will learn from some of those things that they've done today while speaking loudly as well. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Agassiz.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I'm not sure I can deliver my message as energetically here as my colleague, the MLA for Portage-La Prairie. But nonetheless, I am pleased to stand in the House and speak to Bill 37, the BITSA bill, and put some words on the record reflecting the consequences of this bill and the disservice to the democratic process we have here in Manitoba. This is an important topic that has stirred up much conversation and concerns right across our province, raising eyebrows and creating debates among folks and businesses. And Manitobans have a right to know what is hidden in this bill. It's important to have these bills and legislation go through proper legislative processes and procedures. And what is hidden in this bill doesn't allow for that opportunity for Manitobans to come and speak to some of the issues that are hidden in this NDP agenda. The government has taken an abundance of legislative changes and put it into this and not introduced through the legislative process and practices, which is very undemocratic, and it reduces the transparency and accountability, and it is full of broken promises. We heard some very interesting comments from the member of Fort Garry, and I'll get to that in just a little bit, some of which he references as the legislation that should have been introduced as a standalone where proper debate can happen and go to a standing committee. Jamming bills or legislation into this omnibus bill eliminates, again, like I've said, the opportunity for public input. Folks here in Manitoba will not have that opportunity to ask questions, raise their concerns. Shame. And let's talk about the tax changes that are in this bill. And these are important for folks to be made aware of. Manitobans need to know that they are going to have the burden of some of these changes with this NDP government. We will continue to pay more and get less.
Absolutely.
One bit of legislation that touches all of us here is the NDP are not going to freeze hydro rates, but what will the NDP do? Raise.
They're going up.
Raise the hydro rates.
Going up.
Tucked away in the bill is the changes to the Fuel Tax Act. The NDP will end the fuel tax holiday, and then what will they do? Raise the fuel tax without going through, again, the legislative process, the proper legislative process, where transparency and consultation. And that fuel tax, who does that fuel tax really help here in Manitoba? It doesn't touch the most vulnerable. It helps those people that have, drive the big fancy SUVs and have the luxury of a vehicle. There's many of our Manitobans that don't have that. So this tax savings holiday that they claim doesn't really serve to some of our most vulnerable here in Manitoba. Bill 37 places new tax on doctors and professors, making them pay more in income tax, as well as additional tax on their home property. How does Manitoba attract professionals when tax increase like this just won't attract growth or business? Excuse me. The NDP has taken away assistance for small businesses for collecting and forwarding tax revenues to the department. Changes to tax statutes could create new loopholes. That's another term that we heard most recently from the member of Fort Garry, loopholes. More specific to the statutes, the tax statutes, it'll allow individuals or businesses to exploit the system. These loopholes, again, can lead to tax avoidance or evasion and could result in the loss of revenue for the government, which in turn affects all of us here in Manitoba. Manitobans need and deserve the opportunity to ask these questions and bring their concerns forward. These changes will create an unfavorable environment for investment here in our province. It'll discourage businesses from expanding or even starting new ventures and discourages recruitment efforts for newcomers to our province, which will lead to a negative impact both on economic growth and, of course, jobs. With these tax regulations and changes, it becomes more stringent for industry. It can affect our competitiveness and sustainability, and it's important to assess the impact on different sectors and ensure the fairness. I've made reference to a few examples highlighting the tax burden, that of which will have a negative effect on folks here in Manitoba, and the consequences that we will be faced here, hurting businesses and, of course, their financial future here in Manitoba. And again, big concerns that individuals and groups have, or some more concerns that groups have and industries have, are the legislative process in this BITSA bill that does not provide opportunities for public input, doesn't provide a wider range of perspective and voices, ensuring that the bill truly represents the interests of all Manitobans. The right to make your choice is a key element to democracy. What it does represent is the fact that the NDP do not want to hear from Manitobans, but rather want to hide from public input, hide their ideological ways in legislation, and look for loopholes. There's no equity and fairness in this. It doesn't address equity in the tax system or fairness. It doesn't ensure a fair and equitable tax system, which is crucial for promoting social and economic justice. Individuals have also expressed concerns about the potential impact of the bill on those vulnerable populations here in Manitoba. They worry that certain budgetary decisions or changes in tax regulations could disproportionately affect low-income earners, like I've mentioned before, families or marginalized communities. It is essential to consider the potential social implications and ensure that adequate support systems are in place to protect these populations. And again, like I said, it's important to engage in open dialogue and ensure that legislation achieves what it's intended to do, and while minimizing any negative impacts. You know, and we'll go back to the gas tax holiday and the impact that has. We were told that we were going to see, you know, a change in grocery prices. Have we seen that come forward? We have not seen anything like that come forward. And like my colleague said, it's even hard to go and buy a pork chop at the grocery stores these days. We're all faced with those financial challenges, and you know, another thing that's tucked into the back of this bill, which is really huge, and I've talked to many in industry, I've had meetings with stakeholders, and they're concerned with the labor that is tucked away in the labor laws that are tucked in this bits of bill. And those labor laws that are in this bill will never come to committee. And that is a concern for a lot of the stakeholders that I've seen, and small business and industry. And the elimination of public input in labor through this bill will have a negative effect on many of these industries and these businesses. And public input in these matters ensures that there is transparency and accountability in this decision making. By eliminating this input, they face, you know, businesses and industry can face criticism for lack of transparency. And that can damage their reputation and erode their trust with the public and their employees. Again, we learned from the member from Fort Garry, I believe it was this week, that the Labor Relations Amendment Act was changed in secrecy, and it wasn't actually what was coming out in the original rollout of the bill, is what I understand. And the NDP are making substantial and significant changes to these labor laws that should be considered carefully, and you know, get consultation on making such changes. But the NDP are not going to allow for that. Manitobans will not have the opportunity to come and speak to these changes. They are going to be banning replacement workers with exceptions, but it's not clear if these exceptions are workable or if they're too bureaucratic, because we don't know. We don't know what that's going to look like. We have questions about how we can be sure that this ban won't impact health, safety, and the lives of those in foster care, health care, seniors care, hospital care, or any other kind of care where one's life is impacted by the employees that care for them. Now, in reference to this bill, I just want to quote the member from Fort Garry. The previous bill that had been drafted looks very different than what actually got to the floor of this House. Now, isn't that interesting? What happened? What changed? I'm going to go on to further quote the member from Fort Garry. It was modified. We know it was modified by the Premier's office, and we know it was modified without the input of either Cabinet or caucus. We know that it was modified and without any discussions about that bill, either at Cabinet or caucus, and that the Premier's office drafted this bill on their own and put it forward without consultation. And I'll go on to quote again the member from Fort Garry. So why would such an important bill like this not be discussed openly? Why would it be changed in secret? Goes on. And what happened in this new bill is that major loophole got inserted into this bill that wasn't there before. Now that's
Order, please. When this matter is again before the House, the honourable member will have 18 minutes remaining, the hour being 5 o'clock. This House is now adjourned and stands adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow.